obstacles that as people that are unsuccessful. In fact, they probably run into more in my own experience. The reason why I feel like they run into more is because when they run into challenges, when they run into difficulties, they don't simply use that as an excuse to become unsuccessful, okay? What they use it for is they use it as motivation in order to become greater. They use it as an ability to become a better version of themselves. They use it as a speed bump, so to speak, on the path to success. And that's really, my advice is to make sure that when you do encounter adversity, which you will encounter adversity of some way, shape, or form. I mean, all of us do over the course of our time at the business. So when you overcome that adversity, instead of using it as an obstacle, instead of using it as a time to be negative, instead what you use it for is a time to be positive, proactive, to become a better version of yourself, okay? And so has anybody in here had to overcome some sort of adversity? Okay, I'm not asking you to share, right? But see, here's the thing, guys. Your version of adversity, it is a big deal to you. Does that make sense? But other people in society would love to have that problem as an adversity. Does that make sense? Like for example, one person's version of adversity may be, well, mom and dad, kicked me out of the house, right? Because I broke curfew or something. I had to go stay with, somebody. All right, that's stuff. That stinks. That's not fun. That's not ideal. But somebody else was like, man, I wish I even knew my parents. I'd be happy with that. I'd love to have somebody that actually holds me accountable. Or maybe it's like, yeah, you know what? Mom and dad they aren't gonna buy me a new car when I graduate from high school, like all my other friends have been getting, right? Or they're not gonna get me a car when I'm 16. Man, I would have loved that. That would have been sweet. When I was 18, my dad, myself, my brother all shared a car. So when I was doing my presentations, typically I would have to drop off my dad. I don't normally talk about that during my team meetings or anything like that. The reason I don't talk about it is because honestly, I didn't even let that be an obstacle. Okay, what I used to have to do is I would go drop my dad off at work, then I would go back to my office, I'd make a few phone calls, then I would typically go work out. After I make a few phone calls, I would do 2 demos, then I would go to the pool, then I would go to do 2 more demos, then after that I would go pick up my dad, then I'd go drop him off, and I'd go hang out with my friends. Or I'd get dropped off and I'd go hang out with my friends. Does that make sense? That was kind of my typical routine when I was 18 years old, and again, I don't say that as to say, wow, I was able to find a way to do all those demos around that crazy schedule, sharing a car. I say it because things that I didn't even think was a challenge at all could be a massive adversity to somebody else, right? Unfortunately, I did lose my dad at the age of 19. That sucked, right? That was not a fun experience. But you know what? It taught me that you have to appreciate what you have and when you have it, And I'll be honest, I would much rather have had an amazing father like I did for 19 years than and not a good one, right? A jerk or whatever other, a word you want to put in there for 40 or 50 years, and that's just kind of my philosophy. That was my standpoint. And and you know what? It taught me a lot about appreciating the moment, appreciating who you're spending time with, appreciating life in general. So our division slogan is no excuses, play like a champion. Because again, you can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you react to it. And that's what's such a great, I think, metaphor for our business, right? Because think about it, you can't always control every single individual demo, right? But you can't always control how you respond. You can't always control the effort that you put in. You can't always control how many phone calls you make. And so that's our divisional slogan. So I want to talk to you guys about selling Cutco. Before I talk to you guys about how to get your average order up to $400, how to consistently sell 90+%. And I'm not talking like, I know some of you guys are in here, you're like, man, my average order is already 600. And that's cool. That's totally cool. That's awesome. If your average order is 600, how can you get it now to 800 or 900? Can you take some things from this meeting to increase your average order by 10 to 20%? Can you take some things from this meeting and increase the number of recommendations that you're getting by 30 or 40 or even 50%? I got some really good stuff on that. And then on top of that, can you also have a better understanding of the phone and what it takes in order to be successful just in general? Because if I told you guys that if you were to make 20 calls a day, you'd make 10 grand this summer, who would do that? Probably all of you, right? I mean, it's like really 20 calls, that's all you're talking. I'm going to show you that a little bit later, but we're going to show you all those. But before we do that, I think it's important that you know what's in it for you or what your options are. Because I think that, what ends up happening sometimes is you get through that kind of that challenging parts of the job, right? Now you've had it, right? Maybe one of your friend's parents is kind of rude to you. We had that happen the other day in the office. There was somebody who called for an appointment. Noah White, he's almost at 10 grand in sales, just started the summer, and he called to book up an appointment with one of his good friend's parents, right? So he knows the number. I mean, this isn't like a number that he forgets, right? This wasn't like dialing in a number. It was pressing a button because it was one of his contacts. The dad picks up and tells him, sorry, you got the wrong number. And he's like, I know that's the right number. I said, so the dad's a D-bag. Who cares? Call and talk to the wife, book up with the mom. He's like, all right, cool. So he calls back. He's like, yeah, I think your husband thought I was like a random telemarketer. It's Noah White. She's like, oh, yeah, honey, come on over. No big deal, right? But still, though, when you first get that first experience, that kind of stings a little bit, right? Or maybe you get that no sale where you were really planning on it being a big order and all of a sudden, nothing. Anybody had one of those? Right? Where it was like, man, this was going to be just, or maybe even it's not a bit, maybe it wasn't a no sale, but like you thought and knew this was going to be a mega order. And it turns out like you show up and they're like, oh, Cutco, yeah. We have everything. And you're like, cool, that's awesome, right? And so there was your hope for this massive order, and now you're trying to scramble to try to make something of it. Well, we're going to talk about how to upsell a little bit today. We're going to talk about how to sell those extra accessories today, but still that can shake you at first. But you need to know what's in it for you. I think it's important that you know about that, what's in it for you. So let's talk about the steps of the vector opportunity. So the first one is just actually being here. Being here, being in this event is the first step, because what it does is it gets you kind of around other high-level thinkers, right? You may be some of the top performers in your own organization, but getting around other like-minded individuals around the division helps put you in kind of elite status. I played basketball and soccer in high school. And in basketball, there's, I'm sure you guys know this, there's AAU, right? Did anybody play AAU? Okay, you did. All right, excellent, right? Well, there's a different level of competition you get at AAU than you do in rec league ball, right? There's different, just like if you played baseball, there's travel teams. In soccer, we had Classic versus Challenge up in North Carolina. Challenge was kind of a localized city league, and then you had Classic, which is where you traveled all over God's green earth in order to do tournaments and other stuff. And the level of competition was insane, right? So like, for example, on my club team for soccer, I played striker. On my high school team, I played sweeper, okay? The reason why I played sweeper is because I was one of the bigger guys on the team, and they needed somebody to stop the ball from getting near the goal because our high school team was no good. And so I would just be in the back, and it was kind of a fun position for me to play because my focus was on the Classic and doing the travel ball, but in high school, I could just kind of lay people out. It was a lot of fun, and I didn't have to think too much about it. But it made for a great opportunity. So anyway, there's a different level of thinking that you have when you get around the right type of people. Just like if you're working out and you work out with the right group of individuals, your workouts get a lot better. Your performance is a lot stronger. But it's playing up to your competition, so to speak. So by getting here, it puts you in front of the right people. What's most important is what you do in response to being here. The next step is key staff. And I'm sure you guys probably heard of key staff, either during training or during other events. But in key staff, that's our kind of special forces / Navy SEALs within the organization. Right? You have like the Navy, then you have the Navy SEALs, right? Different level of responsibility, different level of requirements, commitment, sacrifice, and everything else that is there. But with that comes extra payoff, recognition, performance, bonuses, a little extra pay. Well, same thing here with key staff. We expect our key staff members to make the most money. We expect them to get the most experience. We expect them to be the best of the job. It's also where we promote our future leaders and managers from, okay? And as far as being on key staff, every office has different requirements, but there's usually some sort of sales component that's necessary to being on key staff, right? And do you guys have paper? Or are you able to type in your phone or anything? Okay, sweet. Yeah, as long as you got something you can take notes on, I'm okay with it. As long as you can remember it, because there's no way in 4 hours you guys are going to be able to remember all this. I can barely remember it. I'm the one teaching it, all right? So So there is a sales level, a sales component that you have to meet. And for and every office is different. I know in our office, you got to be at least $3,000 to officially get promoted. You could be at 1,500 in order to get recognized, or 1,000 sometimes to get invited as a candidate. But there's a sales level. The next thing, you got to have the right attitude. When I'm about the right attitude, it's not necessarily that you're always positive. I mean, I'd be foolish if I thought that you'd always be positive, no matter what. Okay, that's not fair. It's not healthy, by the way. You know, there's something inherently wrong if somebody is 100%. They never have a bad day ever. Okay, chances are they've had such terrible days that you just never know about, and that's okay. If they're not sharing the world their problems. But the point is here, our key staff members have the most positive attitudes. If they have a bad day, they don't dump it down on representatives and other people on the team. They dump up. Does that make sense? They share it with their manager. They share it with me, right? You know, because when you go up with your problems, you can actually get solved. You guys understand the difference between sympathy and empathy? Yeah, what is sympathy? You may know?
Feeling sorry.
Feeling sorry for somebody, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what is empathy?
Understanding.
Yeah, understanding it, seeing from somebody's shoes, being in their situation, right? Understanding where they're coming from. Okay, here's the problem with sympathy. It does no one any good, because all sympathy does is it allows that person that's feeling kind of down to kind of dwell in it and kind of stew. And for the other people, they're not able to help them if they're offering sympathy. Empathy, though, empathy can say, hey, look, man, I know where you've been. I get it, right? It sucks. It allows them to feel the challenge and the pain or whatever they got to go through. But it's like, hey, here's something that helped me. And here's something I found helped me. And when you show empathy, you can actually help somebody improve. You can help somebody get better. Okay, so our key staff members, you know, they don't dump down, because all that's looking for is sympathy. Empathy is where you dump up and you go to somebody that actually has been in your situation and can help you. And I'm just going to tell you guys, there's nothing that any one of you have experienced either on presentations and probably in personal life that either your manager or myself hasn't dealt with. Okay, I'm talking all sorts of challenges, tragedies, adversities that your managers, myself, people that we've helped coach and managed have risen above on the path to success. Okay, so when you dump up, you're going to people that have actually been through it in order to become successful. Some of you guys have heard the story of Anthony Robbins, and the guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But at one point in time, he was a janitor, you know, that used to cry himself to sleep at night. He was, you know, felt sorry for himself, and he's found himself changing that pattern by studying successful individuals. And he became so good at it that he now is one of the consultants to the stars, right? I mean, he's the guy, he's a self-help motivational guru that people go to when they're thinking about, committing tragedy to themselves. He's the people that, he's also been a motivational and personal growth coach for people like Bill Clinton and world-class athletes. You know, people like Mariano Rivera and other people like that. Usher here in Atlanta goes to for self-help motivational advice and guru advice with Tony Robbins. And this was a guy that was a janitor at one point in time. Okay, so so by improving and going to people that have helped you, you can get better. So having the right attitude is critical. And the last one is asking. You got to ask somebody, because we can't promote somebody to key staff. That's not something we know they're interested in. You know, I mean, the truth is key staff isn't for everybody. There is an extra meeting once a week. You know, there is a little bit extra expectations. We have higher standards for our key staff members. I will say this: if you're already on key staff, my advice, by the way, if you're not on key staff, is to get there in the next 10 days. That should just be it's like, hey, in the next 10 days, what I got to do? Get on key staff. I'd say no later than June 14th, by the way. Getting on key staff is critical. But beyond June 14th, right, or beyond that, if you're already on key staff, take advantage of it. See, getting on key staff is cool. That's fun. It's nice. It's recognition. It's kind of a feather in your cap, something you can put on your resume. Looks solid. But see, what you do in response to getting on key staff is what's even better, because that's where you start to have some fun. That's where you can set up contests with your managers for free Cutco, like individual stuff you don't have, right? That maybe you want to build with your set, or even better. What I used to do on key staff, I used to do accountability contests with other people on the team. And that is where it gets fun. So pick somebody in your office that's going to be an accountability partner and create contests with them. Okay, have any of you guys done that before? Any of you guys have somebody you kind of like to do a little mano-a-mano competition with? See Chops over here staring down somebody. You got somebody in your head? Okay, good. Cool. All right. So you guys got a little mano-a-mano competition going. All right, that's good. So here's some things that we did with my accountability partner. Loser would have to buy the dinner at the next team meeting. Right? We would do that. Whoever sold less for that week would have to clean the other person's car. We did that. Loser one time had to wear a dress at the next team meeting. Luckily, I won that one, right? And I'll tell you that another one I lost. So I had to shave my head. You know, I had to shave my head. I did not sell as much, so I had to shave my head for a big 2-week contract. I know that you're. Yep, I bet you win that week. If you had to shave the mutton chops, you might be fucking mad about that, man. But you know, but what I would say is you create those competitions, because when you do that, it really truly motivates you beyond just making money, and that's what it's really all about. I mean, if you look at those guys playing the NBA right now, you know, if you watch that game, anybody watched Game 7 yesterday? Man, what a hell of a game, right? I mean, just unreal. Seeing Steph do his thing, see Westbrook have his meltdown, seeing Durant trying to carry his team back from the grave, right? I mean, it was just so awesome to see these guys compete. You know what? Every single person on that court was making millions of dollars. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the love of the game, the competition, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, right? It wasn't about money. And I'll tell you, this job, it's never been about money for me. It's been about getting that kind of competitive outlet, allowing myself to impact people, allowing myself to better people to become better versions of themselves, right? And so when you have that competition, I'll give you an example. The week of the dress, right? I was not going to lose that one. So I remember my rep went out, the guy I was competing against, and he ended up being ahead of me. I had had a pretty good week, but I was planning on taking the weekend off. Well, he went out and had a big Friday. Sold $1,000 that Friday, and so he jumped ahead of me. So I'm like, crap. I'm not losing it. So this was back in the day when there was no Rolo. You couldn't enter in your orders online and just be able to carry it all the way through Monday, right? So for me, what I had to do is we had to be there on either Sunday or Monday morning, and that's when we dropped off orders, and that was it. So whatever you were at. And so I knew that I didn't have a Monday to kind of build up my week. So I ended up getting on the phone Saturday morning, scheduling a couple of same-day appointments, went out, sold a homemaker set, sold a little bit extra, jumped ahead of them. And so just by going out, fighting, and doing more appointments that I normally wouldn't have done, I made several $100s extra that week on my paycheck. Okay. Again, it wasn't about the money, but it was certainly pretty nice to be rewarded for it. Does that make sense? And it's even better not having to do the other thing, right? So that was awesome. So having competitions, having fun. I'll tell you guys, buying team meeting dinners out afterwards is a kind of a fun little contest because you're going to eat anyway. It's a tax write-off anyway, and it's something where it pushes you to be a better version of yourself. It's kind of like lifting. Any of you guys lifted by yourself or lifted with a partner, like a spotting partner or a trainer or something like that? When you have somebody there with you, you naturally are able to do more. Okay, you're able to push a little bit further. They've done studies that literally show that when people are running ultra marathons or running distance races, having somebody there with them, almost every single person runs further than if they were just by themselves. Okay, because you can't coast, right? You can't get away with it. You can't fool yourself. It's easy to trick yourself, right? It's easy to sell yourself on. I don't really need to do that extra rep. I mean, I'm pretty tired. I'm good, right? I already got a pretty good sweat going, so I think I'm good. I got my work on. Right? But if you got that training partner there, you're gonna go a little further. Same thing with the accountability partner here. So use that. Take advantage of the Key Staff contest. We've got Key Staff Getaway. We're doing it at the end of the summer up on Lake Hartwell. We rent out a big old mansion up there on the lake, and we're gonna have a big fun event where we're gonna have Vector Olympics and other stuff. Where we're doing so we got a little touch football game going on. So if any of you guys are good at football, we'll need your services. We're gonna be going up against the Coastal Division for that, so that'll be fun. If any of you guys are good at water pong, we could use your services for that. That's always necessary is water. If any of you guys are good at any of those other type of yard games in general, we're gonna have a big old Vector Olympics competition. So we need to go walk the dogs on the Coastal Division for that. So so get on Key Staff. It's a lot of fun. The next level, guys, is FSL or FSM, and getting to that bonus land. Okay, when I think about getting to bonus land, as far as when it's available to you, I would put this summer. Making that a mission. Can you get to bonus land this summer? Because by getting to bonus land this summer, what that does for you is it opens up doors, okay, for great success. Okay, because there's two different paths people can take. They can, one path that some students take during college is they get to bonus land and they just sell making 30, 40, 50% the entirety of their college career. Make killer money, graduate with a lot of money in the bank, and then they have amazing sales experience to be able to promote to when they're doing interviews. Okay. Others, though, like myself, they get to that bonus land and then they start searching and using and taking advantage of the growth that happens in the management capacity, getting into the management field. And so FSL or FSM, you get there at 20,000. So getting that bonus lane as quickly as possible is something that's critical. Above that, we have assistant manager intern. Okay, and as an AM intern, it's not usually a paid position, but it's something in the office where you're learning the ropes. Okay, you're learning how to do some of the stuff in the office, kind of the basic management stuff. Maybe you're helping out with phone jams, taking people field training. You might be helping with, be a team captain for the assistants that are already in the office. But it is a good first step into that. And guys, that'll be available really this summer and fall in every single organization. I know we're promoting some AM interns and assistant managers as early as June 14th. So really just 2 weeks from now. I mean, and you may be like, man, I barely even know how to do the full presentation yet. There's no way I could be a manager. Guys, that's not true. I mean, the fact is for a new representative just getting started, the fact that you are here and that you've sold Cutco and have lived to tell the tale, right? Didn't kill you, right? That's sometimes enough motivation for people that are new to be confident in the job, right? Because I remember thinking that my manager asked me to take somebody field training one time, and I'm like, man, I barely even know what I'm doing. I'm not even that good yet. And I remember him saying, you know what, Trey, you're making sales, and that's all these reps need to see. And I'm like, yeah, but I pretty much just follow the white book. And he's like, exactly. Sometimes that's all they need to see. I'm like, all right, screw it, I'll do it. Right. And so I took a rep field training, and what's funny is I had a no sale. I did the appointment. I closed almost all the time when I was a rep, but I had a no sale. And I remember leaving, and I remember I was so like upset. I didn't let the other rep know. I didn't know that I was upset. But called my manager after. I was like, dude, man, what the heck? I had a no sale. Like, I don't think they learned anything. And he's like, you know what? I just talked to him, and yeah, he learned a lot. And sure enough, that next appointment that kid did, he ended up selling a starter set. He hadn't sold any sets yet. Sold a starter set because he actually saw me not go from a homemaker to nothing. He saw me drop through the process effectively and comfortably, and realized that customers are actually comfortable with that when you do it the right way. And that was all he needed to see. And he went out and sold a set on the next appointment. And Matt said, you know what, if he hadn't had that no sale and dropped all the way through, he wouldn't have learned that. If he'd seen you give up after the homemaker, then yeah, he would have learned how to not nothing, right? If you had sold a homemaker, but immediately was done with the presentation, that wouldn't have helped him either. Or could have maybe, I don't know. Maybe he would have sold a homemaker on his next one. But I do know this. I know that the guy performed when he didn't beforehand, and that gave me some confidence. And that's when I started to kind of get a taste of, management's pretty cool. And so as far as above that, we have assistant manager. And assistant manager is it's kind of a nice little stepping stone. We'll have those available. Actually, there's going to be some assistant managers we're going to be promoting June 14th. Okay, and if you're in the TKO, it may be a little bit different time frame, but SC1 with your manager there with Jeff Fry, your managers will get you that exact time, right? But as far as us, it's June 14th. The cost, by the way, the conference is $1,000 if you don't go, and if you do go, it's free. Okay, the reason why I say it costs so much is you will lose at least $1,000 in earnings. I'm not even if you change nothing and what you're planning on doing the rest of the summer, just do the same number of demos you always plan on doing. You'll lose at least $1,000. What I mean is you'll lose at least $6,000 worth of sales and increased sales by being at that meeting versus not, right? So so it will definitely help you out. But we will be promoting some people at that event, and as assistant manager, you get kind of the best of both worlds. You get paid based on selling at whatever level you're at, so 30%, 40%, whatever level. But you also get paid based on helping out in the office. It's not a career position, but it's a good, nice step into that. I will say the average assistant manager that we train does make about $8,000 or so across the division for the summer, which is pretty good income for a young professional. I remember my second summer with the company, I was an assistant manager. I made 15 grand. That was pretty nice. It was my goal actually while I was in college. I wanted to make a grand per year that I was alive, right? So each summer. So like my first summer, I only made 5 and 6 weeks. But then my next summer, I started thinking about being an assistant. I'm like, man, if I'm 19 years old, can I make 19 grand this summer? And I made 15. So then when I was 20, I was like, all right, got to make 20. And I did make 20 that third summer. And then fourth one, I made even more than that. And it was cool when I looked back and saw that I'd made over 100 grand while I was a college kid, and I'd saved $50,000. That was pretty cool. But that wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for this business, right? And as an assistant manager, you kind of get into that management experience a little bit. You start to learn some of those things that can help you out as a rep, right? And as a manager. Above that is what's called a sales manager. And a sales manager is somebody who runs the office side by side with your leader, right? So with your district manager, with your branch manager, those are your sales managers. And they're full-time in the office. We have a sales manager here in this office named Michael Mullins. You'll see him at some point. He's running an interview, got something else going on, but he works side by side with our pilot manager to help run the show. He does a couple appointments occasionally, like he's doing 2 this week just because we're in this big contest, but most of his time is actually spent in the office, digging in, running interviews, working with trainees, and helping out just in general. So as far as when that could be available, fall and spring would really be the first time a sales manager position would be available, because you're running interviews, you're helping out with training, you're working with the new trainees as they're doing their appointments. So that's when it can be available, is in the fall or spring. Above that is what's called branch manager. And that really is the highlight opportunity that we have as Vector for college students. The reason I say it's the highlight for college students is because I'm not foolish enough to think that every single one of you guys wants to eventually run your own company for Vector, right? I don't believe that. In fact, I didn't believe that when I was a rep. I thought, I was like, man, this would be a cool job for the summer. Maybe next summer, if I do well, I can come back. I never in a million years thought that I would have hit, most of my quote unquote material goals that I had for myself by the time I was 30 years old with this company. It was one of those things I thought, I'd be doing something completely different, but it was pretty cool to be able to have that opportunity within the company. But as a branch manager, even if your goals are not to be with the company, even if you know for a fact there's no way you're going to be with the company, maybe you want to be a doctor, a dentist, an engineer, a lawyer, and those are that's been your life's mission since you were a kid, and you're going to go do that. Well, you know what? Being a branch manager helps you be a better version of that. Because as a branch manager, you run your own office for 4 months. You do it during the summer. Why do you think we picked the summer? Yeah. For people that are in school, they have the availability. For reps, most of our reps are young professionals, right? They're that 17 to 25, right? Age range. Most of them are freer during the summer than they are during the school year. So it frees up the work pool. It frees up your availability. And guys, it is, it's about 8 to 10 weeks of a lot of work doing, building your organization, working with your receptionist, recruiting, training, that sort of thing. And then the last 2 months of the summer is just working with your top reps, selling, doing appointments as well, and really profiting a lot of money. In fact, the company does give you $8,500 as a startup bonus for that. And what's pretty cool for our branches is that anybody that branches, they actually get paid on all the business generated in their territory all the way through September. So even though they're only really training people for a couple months and then working with them in July and August, they can be back in school. I mean, that's pretty cool. Be back in school in September, right? And all of a sudden you keep getting direct deposits. It's because volume's being generated in your territory, and that's a pretty cool perk of the job. But I will say that's not the reason why people do it. The reason why people do it, as far as for next summer, it's 30. Is they call it taking the leap. And what I mean by taking the leap is the L stands for leadership. And this is real leadership. This is not that leadership where what I mean by that, like some people have leadership on their resume, which is basically like they showed up and they were like the captain of a sports team, right? That was like me. When I was graduating from high school, those were some of the things that I put on my resume. So I was captain of a soccer team. I was captain of a basketball team. That's nice. it's cool. But at the end of the day, if I quit the basketball team because I didn't like the coach, was there going to be no basketball team? No, they would just the next day be like, hey, you know what? You're captain, right? They'd be like, awesome, right? You know, I'll love to be captain. So it's one of those things where, or being the like the head, like the president of the student body association. If the president of the student body association at a high school or college decides they no longer feel up for the position, they're going to put somebody else in that role. Does that make sense? And I just, maybe my school was different. I was the treasurer, right, of my high school. I didn't do anything. Can any of you guys relate to that? Like, it wasn't like I was not doing anything. It's just I didn't have any availability. It's like you have a budget of $500 that you're going to manage. It's like, oh, cool. What could we spend on $500, right? It wasn't like it was a lot of real responsibility. The secretary, my buddy Joey, that was even funnier. He was the secretary of the whole senior class. His job, he took notes at 2 meetings for the entire year, and that was he put on his resume, he was a secretary for his senior class. It's like the only one that really did much of anything was the president. And then everybody else was just kind of part of their quote unquote cabinet, right? But it was one of those things where it wasn't real leadership. Now, guys, this is real leadership. What's cool is you go to your territory. And I remember going to my territory when I first moved down here. And I remember my original office was on the other side of Indian Trail. I remember getting off my exit when I went to my office, and I remember seeing a Waffle House. I remember saying, you know what? That's my Waffle House. This is my territory, right? You know, and I remember, just having that conference. I remember walking into my own office, and I was so excited about having my own office that I had forgot to get an apartment when I first got down. So that first night, luckily, I was the owner. I was able to sleep in my office, right? Again, don't recommend it, but I did it, right? You know, if I wanted to kick back and kick my feet up on the chair, I could do that because it was my chair, it was my desk, it was my office. And the other thing is that you're leading people, because if it wasn't for you, you know, those people would not have positions with the company. You are the organization. You know, your people become a reflection of you. Hopefully that's a good thing. You know, but it is, right? You start, and it's fun. You won't even notice this yet. Maybe you already have. If you guys started noticing, you're starting to talk and act a little bit like your manager without even realizing it. If you've been with the job for more than just a couple of days or a couple of weeks, you're going to start finding yourself using some of the quotes, the mannerisms, and jokes that your manager has. And it's funny because these meetings are a little tougher because it's the first time. Most of you guys are brand new, but by the time we get to SC1 or some of the end of summer conferences, I'll know what office people are from just by the way they carry themselves. I'll know that. I just know. It's funny. It's like, oh, you must work with insert blank, right? We had a guy named Will Bice last summer who's hilarious. He's outgoing, a little irreverent, but like his people, like I just knew. I was like, oh, you work with Will, don't you? He's like, yeah, how'd you know? It's like, oh, I know, right? You know, or it's like, hey, I know you work with Jordan, or hey, I know you work with blank, because of the way they carry themselves, right? And so you are providing real leadership, not just something you can put on a resume, but real leadership. Now, speaking of that, though, the E stands for experience. I mean, think about being able to put on a resume at the age of 18, 19, 20 years old that you helped negotiate your own office lease. You helped formulate and implement a business plan. You know, that's something that's pretty cool. You did cash flow analysis, profit loss statements. You did, and here's the thing, guys, we help you with all of it. We've been doing it for over 30 years. You know, so we help people with it, but being able to go into a job interview and saying that thing, or saying those things, it really does help to separate people. In fact, I will say that most of my branch managers will say that the number one or number two reason why they got the job out of college was because of branching. Sean Walker is a great example of it. He's somebody that went to school here locally, went to Marist, went to college, graduated from college, and when he was a junior, got an internship with PwC, which is the largest accounting firm in the world. And the reason he got the interview, the reason he got the job, the internship offer over other people that had better GPAs was because of his resume experience he had here. You know, it's kind of, you know, because what will happen, and you guys, a lot of you don't know this yet, but when you graduate from school, if you go and interview with a big company, there's usually the person that's interviewing you, which usually is fairly new and green, right? And then there's kind of like the boss or like the head of the department that kind of sits back and observes a little bit. but they're not the one that's doing a lot of the big work. And so he said when all the interviews were happening for interns, there was a first-year associate that was actually doing the interviewing. And then in the back was kind of the talent director or whatever you want to call it, sitting back. And he said that after he got the resume, the talent director started asking questions to Sean. And by the end of it, he was directly being interviewed by the head person. Okay? He was directly being influenced and directed. Subject. If you want to, I think Sean and Doug and Mullins are back in here. And so it's one of those things where getting that experience on his resume helped to separate him, so that way, he was able to get that position. And then when he did graduate from school, he got a full-time job offer right away. Bam. Then here recently, he just got a new promotion within the world of accounting to go work on the corporate side for Arby's, right? And doing their assurance. It was a several, I'm not even going to say the amount that's being recorded, several thousands and thousands of dollars promotion bonus to take this position with that company. And he said they actually asked him more about his branch experience running his own office than they did about him working in assurance for PwC for 3 years since he graduated or whatever. Okay, so it really does help to separate people when they've got that experience on their resume, real world experience. Because think about it, guys. If somebody's got a 3.8 with no experience, somebody else has a 3.4 with experience, who's getting the job? 3.4. Yeah, you guys may know this, but Google just stopped asking people to put their GPA on their resume. They made a big announcement about it. It was all over Forbes and other stuff. They said, they just said, hey, when you apply, just turn in your resume without your GPA, because we found it has zero indication as to how successful somebody's going to be when they work with us. Facebook stopped doing it as well. Okay? It becomes less and less important, right? Because what matters is what you do, not what your grade point average is. If that's all you're focusing on in your grades, yes, absolutely. That is the only thing that they have to evaluate you on. But see, when you have something that can say, hey, I've also done this while in school, that helps them, because not only are you able to get the work done, but you're able to get the results too outside of it. Okay? Just think about it, guys. As you get older, you're going to want to be more successful. Okay? I don't think most people aspire to be a great coworker but a terrible father, or a great coworker but a bad wife. Does that make sense? They aspire to be both, which means they got to be good at multiple things, handling multiple areas of their life, right? And so that's something that's really important. The next one is adventure. And guys, I will say that there is never a dull moment in a Vector office. Wouldn't you guys agree? Yeah. There's always something happening, right? It's hilarious. I know on Sunday we had our big phone jam to launch off the push, and we were having a lot of fun. And we decided to go out and play wiffle ball and football out in the backyard during our back of the parking lot there for about an hour break. During it, we have contests in the office all the time. Here in this office, we do it. Some of you guys were on that conference call Sunday. Sorry for it was obnoxious or whatever, but we were having a good time when people were drawing. We were playing music and ramping up. Here in this office, everybody that books up an appointment, they got their own little theme song that we play for them when they get an appointment booked up during a big phone jam, right? Depending on the person, some of them are really funny. Some of them are probably not office place acceptable, but we try to find the clean versions on YouTube so that we can play it, so that people are able to get the information. So, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. Okay, so there's never a dull moment in Vector Office. And then the P stands for personal growth. And we got PowerPoint snafu there, but for personal growth, right? And it is challenging, unlike most things available to young professionals. Okay, it is challenging, unlike most things available to young professionals. And guys, that's something that is that's really important to think about. Is that our best people want that. Okay? Running a branch office, a lot of people will tell you it's the toughest thing they've ever done. If you're in a branch office, your manager will tell you one of the toughest things they've ever done. But I think our best people want that challenge. They want that opportunity to step up to the plate. They want that ability to grow and to become better. So as far as branch manager, we will be running an interview process for our top candidates at the end of the summer. We have something called our Leadership Academy, and we promote people into our Leadership Academy based on their effort and achievements during the summer. But as far as for next summer, our goal is to have 30 offices next summer in the division. So that's our branch manager. Above that is what's called pilot sales manager. And as a pilot sales manager, there's only one of those in the entire division. Our pilot sales manager now is a guy by the name of Doug Blanchard. Doug actually started with us as a rep, then was one of my assistant managers last summer. What I do is whenever I promote the pilot, there's only 35 of them in the whole company. But whenever I promote somebody, I look for the best and the brightest. I look for people that come in and go above and beyond, and only one person gets promoted to branch manager in the entire division. And so because of that, what I want to make sure that I do is we make sure we take the right person. So as far as when it's available to you, it's really a question mark because you got to earn it. Usually you have to run your own branch office or be on pace to becoming the next version, which is what's called district manager. And as a district manager, that's really that's the pillar of our company. That's where the business is built on as a district manager. Many of your managers are district managers. We have several new district managers in our division, and Tyler Norman, Dwayne Dennis, Mike Patterson, Adrian Gonzalez, Jen Hart, Sam Knapp, and Jordan White, right? All these individuals are brand new district managers, people that 1 year ago were either branching, assisting in an organization, being a pilot manager, but now they own their own company. And we have some veteran district managers as well, people like James Chow and Jake Cook, as well as Cole Forrester. And these individuals are people that are more veteran. They've been doing it a little bit longer. Okay, and I will say district manager is a pretty good gig if you can cut it, right? What I mean by that is if you can put in the effort to be a district manager, pretty good gig. As far as some of the things, what I think about what it means to be a district manager is you are a business owner. You're running your own company. When I think about what it means to live the American dream, it's running your own business. Guys, here's what's awesome. I was at the office this morning at 7:15. I didn't have to be. I could have come in whenever. I'm the owner, right? But I chose to be here early because I wanted to be here early. I wanted to be here to help out our new representatives, to teach and give instruction. Okay? I don't have to work when I don't want to work. I work when I choose to work. And that's something that's great. And your district managers, people like James and all the people I've mentioned so far, they create their own schedule. I don't force anything there. They do what they want to do. They'll ask for suggestions oftentimes about what it takes to become a district manager. But at the end of the day, they create their own schedule. They've got freedom. They got flexibility. You may notice your managers working pretty hard right about now, right? And they're grinding. The reason why is because there's certain times of the year when you got to grind. Right? Think about it. If you're an accountant, those months of February, March, and April, you're just crushing it, right? Because it's tax season. You're working really hard, but right afterwards, you got a little bit of a downtime. If somebody's playing professional sport during the season, they're working consistently, but also in the off season, a lot of them, that's when they're really grinding, right? Because they're trying to improve by the time the season gets there. So that way, once they get in the season, they're kind of in the rhythm. Well, like I said, you may see your managers working really hard now. Don't feel too bad for them. They do all right. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunities for travel. As a district manager, there's 6 vacations a year that you can qualify for, which is pretty awesome. Okay. Does anybody like to travel at all?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I love traveling. I've been fortunate enough that through the company, I've been able to travel to, I believe, 5 continents so far, which is pretty cool. I'm going to Thailand in December. And that's a personal vacation, but I mean, every year I always get to go on company trips. I mean, next year the company trip for the managers is Costa Rica. It's pretty cool. Last year was Prague. There's a trip to Mexico, which I know you guys know about. So there's a lot of little trips and things that you can win. And here's what's awesome: as a district manager, they're paid vacations, which is pretty sweet. So also big income opportunity. It is a 6-figure plus income opportunity. There is a BMW car allowance that you get when somebody has been a manager for 20 months. So there's some pretty cool little perks. And again, some of these perks were not there when I first started, right? Like the BMW car allowance, that wasn't there. That just got instated like 2 years ago, okay? So that wasn't even an option when I first started. So when I became a district manager, I didn't take it for the car. I took it for the ability to create my own destiny and to be able to impact people and help inspire and develop a business, an organization. And like I said, it's ultimate leadership, because not only are you managing and helping out your reps, but you also help to manage your future branch managers who are out running their office for the summers to get that great resume experience, and you're helping to develop people to become great leaders later in life, okay? Above district manager is what I do, which is as far as when it can be available. You got to be out of school. Is anybody going to be out of school in the next year or so? Okay, a couple of you are. Okay, so if you're going to be graduating from school in the next couple of years, it could be available to you once somebody is out. Okay, but like I said, for those that aren't out of school, you'd have to wait until that, right? And I know for some people, school's on everybody. That's not for everybody. They're like, it's not for me. That's fine. But for me, I did get my degree. I got my degree at Chapel Hill, so I wanted to at least have that before I became a district manager. But it is something that is out there for you. Above district manager is a division manager, and as a division manager, like I said, not only do you run your division or your district, but you also oversee the rest of the training and talent development for the division. So, for example, that's why you guys are here. As I'm running this for you guys. So, and so is any of this talk of advancement getting any of you guys excited about doing some winners? Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about it for a little bit, because what does it take to get to, the most important thing, like it says, key staff. Let's talk about getting to 20K. Let's talk about getting to bonus land. What does it take to consistently sell that amount? Like, how quickly can somebody get to 20,000? You think? You do it in a week or two. Yeah, we've had people do it in a week across the company. But let's just assume that you're doing $2,000 a week, right? $2,000 a week, you're hitting in 10 weeks. Do you think worth getting to bonus land do you think it's worth getting there? Yeah, and it's tough, right? I mean, it may be tough. You may have some no sales. You may have some people that are, that are tough on you. You may have that tough phone call or something like that, and that's not real ideal. But at the end of the day, you could quit. I mean, you could quit right now. I mean, I doubt your managers would be happy about hearing that, but you could, right? You could all leave right now and probably be able to go get a job somewhere, right? Unfortunately, the options are not usually that exciting. Okay, what's the average college kid job paying these days right now? Okay, let's just say it's $8, right? So let's say you're making $8 an hour. Usually you're not getting 40 hours. Let's just say you get 30 hours a week. Get 30 hours a week, $240, you take out some taxes, boom, you're right around that $190 level, right? You may wonder why they say broke college kids. Right? Now, here's the deal, though. You work there long enough, you're going to get a pay raise, right? Now, how much is that pay raise usually for, though?
25 cents.
Yeah, 25 cents, a dollar. Let's just say it's 50 cents, right? So 3 months go by, boom, get a pay raise. You're at $8.50. Now we're moving, right? $255, you minus out taxes, you're at $205. 6 months later, now here's the problem. If you're in school, a lot of times they don't count when you go away to school, right? Say, oh, you went away to school, you come back where you left, right? Okay, so then you go away to school, you come back, you may be stuck, but let's just say you get a pay raise, now you're at 9. Okay, you're making $220. So really, your 1 year growth opportunity is $30 a week. Okay? It's not that exciting. I mean, if you're hitting promotions, if you've hit a promotion, you've increased your pay rate by more than that. 2 year growth opportunity, you're at $250 now. So 2 year growth opportunity, you're making $60. Right? And guys, just to give you an idea, let's just look up here at the board. Let's say that you're selling 1,000 a week, 2,000 a week, and 4,000 a week. And we're going to focus on this. But let's just say if you're at 10%, you're making 100, 150, 200, and 400. Now I know you're saying, oh, you sell 1,000, you get more. No, I get it. Right? We're just doing this for simple math's sake. So 10%, 15%, you're at 150, 300, right? And let's see here, 600. Okay? Right here at 20%, you're at 200, 400, and 800. Okay, so what are you starting to notice? Way bigger, right? So just check this out. That means if you're selling consistently $1,000 a week, you're increasing your weekly paycheck every time you hit a promotion by about $50 a week. So about almost the 2 year growth opportunity you're hitting every week or two. Okay? If you're doing 2K, you're increasing your weekly paychecks by $100 a week. And if you're at 4K a week, which some of you guys I know are on pace for that, every time you hit a pay raise, you're increasing your paycheck by $200 per week. We have a guy that just started in our office named Cal. He's already over 10 grand in sales. He just started 2 weeks ago. So he's been able to make 2 grand, but here's what's even better. This week he sold 5 grand. He's at 30%. Okay? Not bad for an 18-year-old kid. I mean, he's going to make more in 1 week than most of his buddies will make all summer, unless they work here, right? Which is pretty sweet, you know? And so that's kind of the opportunity that you have here in front of you. So what does it take to getting great at, or how do you sell $2 grand a week? How many appointments does it take to sell $2 grand a week? Consistently. It could be done in 1, and that's a lot of fun, right?
20.
Oh, 20, okay. So yeah, it could be done in 1, and that'd be nice. You teach you how to sell $2 grand. You could sit in the hot tub all week, right? Roll out pruny, do a demo, sell $2 grand, get right back in the hot tub, you're good to go, right? That'd be fun. And I'll show you how to have those types of big orders. But the truth is that it really takes about 10 demos a week. You do 10 demos a week, you're consistently going to be selling $2 grand. You can have an appointment or 2 fall through. You can have average closing percentage, average order, and you're still going to hit kind of that 2K number, right? So 10 appointments a week. To do 10 appointments a week consistently, well, what that takes is having a good phone approach. It takes being good at recommendations, and it takes doing a proper demo. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of break this down for you guys to help you get that. And so let's talk about advanced recommendations or advanced leads for a second, okay? And then after that, what we'll do is we'll take a little stretch break. Is that cool? Yeah, so we'll dig into this for a little bit, and then we'll take a break, okay? All right, so let's so let's talk about recommendations. So the first thing about getting recommendations, it is not something that happens at the end of the presentation. I know some people think, oh, you do it at the end. Yes, you ask for them at the end. But see, guys, you get recommendations way before that if you do the proper job, okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about, okay? So the first thing we'll talk about is during rapport building. Okay? And I've got an approach that I use that helped me out as a rep, okay? And it's the following method, okay? All right, and so it's open and close, thanking them, ask them if they've ever heard of Cutco, and then letting them know you're not just a nice salesperson. So let's say, for example, that I was doing the presentation for Ellie here, right? And so what I would do is, you know how when you're doing the presentation, you're sitting down and you're kind of like this, and they usually will ask you, so what do you want to show me today? Or so what is it again you have? Or what are you doing the presentation for? Don't immediately rush into it. Really spend some time conversating and chit-chatting. And when you spend some time conversating or chit-chatting, what are some things you think you could talk about?
Your family.
Okay, family, what else?
Your goals.
Your goals, what's that?
I was just saying, like, pictures that they have.
Yeah, talk about them, right? So a lot about them, about you. Here's the other thing, guys. There's a big 5 group of peoples that adults associate with. The big 5 groups. Number 1, their family and like friends growing up, right? That's kind of like the big one, right? It's all their families, brothers, sisters, grandparents, or parents, you know, kids, that sort of thing, right? So family. Number 2, anybody want to know? Coworkers, right? Everybody has coworkers, unless they're unemployed. If they're unemployed, you don't want to be showing them Cutco anyway, right? So family and friends, coworkers, neighbors, church people, and then kids connections, right? Once somebody starts having kids, usually their life revolves around their children, right? You know, a lot of their time is occupied with taking their children to events, sporting events, games, rehearsals, recitals, taking them to class, going to parent-teacher meetings and conferences and all that, right? That occupies a lot of your parents' time. At some point in time, you should probably thank your parents for how much time they had to take out of their normal everyday life to then raise you. Right? You know, I think some of us forget how tough we really were on our parents, and just getting us to get to the age of 18 and not die for some of us was a challenge, right? And so thank your mom, thank your dad, right, for all the sacrifice they made to get you there. But so that's one of the big ones actually, is their kids' connections, right? Or their kids' friends' parents. I know a lot of my friends who have kids spend a lot of their time with play dates parents. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's like, oh, I'm gonna take, you know, we got these 2 little kids, they take preschool together, so we're gonna go hang out with them. It's just, you naturally develop that connection based on the kids, okay? Or people like, I know my dad and mom, some of the best friends they had when they were in when I was in high school, were people that I played basketball with parents, because they always sat in the stands next to them. They always were talking. I mean, they were just there, right? So make sure as you're building rapport, you're talking about these things. Now, I know it is taboo to talk about church and that sort of thing. So if you know you go to the same church as them, feel free to talk about that, right? But if you're unsure, I would probably just kind of, leave it off the table. You know what I mean? Last thing you would do is start some sort of religious debate right before you start the presentation. That would not usually go over well. So then after you've been chit-chatting with them about some of the big 5 groups, then you go into kind of this step right here. Okay, and you open, you close, you thank them, you ask if they've ever heard of Cutco before, and then you let them know you're not just a knife salesperson. Okay, so here's how you do that. Okay? So I'm gonna stand up just so you guys can all see, but let them start the presentation. They'll usually say, "So what do you want to show me?" or "So what do you have to show?" And so what you do is you open up your book like you're going to show them Cutco, right? And then you just close it. So yeah, so I'm here to show you Cutco, but before I do that, I just want to thank you for seeing me. In fact, the company pays me whatever your pay rate is just to do the presentation. Okay. Now, why do you think you tell them that?
So they don't feel obligated to buy.
Right. And here's the other reason. They feel good in that moment in time, right? They feel really good. Now I know you don't want to give them the impression that they don't buy. Does that make sense? Like nobody wants to go into an appointment and say, okay, don't buy from me. Right. So let me show you how I teach you this, how it actually helps you sell more. This will help you sell more if you do it right. It'll also help you get a ton of recommendations. Okay, so just so you know, I'm here to show you Cutco, but before I do that, I want to thank you for agreeing to see me. Actually, the company pays me $15 just to do the presentation, or $13, whatever your pay rate is, just say it. Okay, have you ever heard of Cutco before? And about half the time they say yes, half the time they say no. You say, oh, well, I'll tell you what, it is awesome. In fact, the reason the company pays me, whatever your pay rate is, $12.50, $13, $15, right? Is because the product is unbelievable and I'm pretty good at what I do. So don't be surprised if you see something you like. Everybody does. So you see how you just did that there? You not only let them know they don't have to get it, but you know what? They're probably gonna get it, right? And you're doing it in a very low-key, laid-back way. And if you're making sales, some of you guys are like 11 for 13, or you made an appointment, you made a sale on almost every one of your demos. Well, then I would tell that to a customer again. It's like, yeah, in fact, everybody I've seen so far has got stuff. Right? So don't screw it up. No, don't say that, right? But yeah, so you just say, hey, I mean, the reason the company pays me $12.50 is because the product is unbelievable and I'm really good at what I do. So don't be surprised if you see something you like. Everybody does. Because when you guys agree, even people that don't get it, they like it. Yeah, so you can be confident saying that. And then here's where you really get a lot of recommendations. But just so you know, I'm not just a knife salesperson. Actually, and then here's where the reason why I'm working is, and then you go into whatever reason. Okay. And so then, all right, so I think you kind of spoke up. So why are you working?
I'd like, one of the main points I bring up is the Cutco scholarship.
Okay, so you want to pay for school. What are you studying?
Engineering.
Why?
Because I want to become a mechanical engineer.
Why?
Because
why ME? I mean, of all the ones you could do.
What was that?
Why ME? Why mechanical engineering? Why not like IE or chemical?
Because it's a large field.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally messing with you. But no, seriously, why'd you pick engineering? Why do you want to be an engineer?
Because I like to build things.
Yeah, okay. And what prompted that? Does it start when you were little?
My dad was a general contractor.
Yeah.
Working on job sites.
Okay. And you enjoyed it? Cool. And so that is what you need to be sharing with your customers. Not just that you're doing this for a scholarship for school. That sounds nice, right? And that's cool. And you probably get a good reflection. But here's the thing. If instead of just saying, hey, the reason why I'm working is actually because I want to win a scholarship for school, you said this. Actually, Michelle, the reason why I'm working is my passion is I want to do mechanical engineering. Ever since I was little, my dad was a general contractor. I would go with him on job sites and I would help him out. I was fascinated with building stuff. Hell, maybe you had a big Lego collection. You could share that, right? I used to build Legos. I mean, I've always been interested in that sort of thing, even when I was little. So actually, the reason why I'm doing this now is I'm actually going to school to be a mechanical engineer. Where are you going to school?
I'm trying to go to Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. I'm trying to go to Georgia Tech. And so I'm doing this because obviously Georgia Tech, even with the Hope Scholarship, it's not going to be cheap to live and work in Atlanta and stuff. So I'm doing this job to help pay for school so that I can eventually become a mechanical engineer and live my dream. Okay. See, now That's why they're going to recommend you. See, some people recommend you to other people because, well, they like the knives, think other people would cook and like them. But they'll recommend you to everybody if they see that you have a passionate why. And guys, I don't care what your passion is, as long as you share it, you will find yourself sitting a little taller, puffing your chest out a little bit, and excited, right? You know, it's almost like just think about that for a second. What is your dream job? Right? You don't need to tell me, but just think about it. What is your dream job? What do you want to do more than anything else? How can Cutco help you to get there? I'll tell you guys, it can help you no matter what it is. I don't care what your dream job is. Your dream job may be you want to play professional football. Well, you know what? How is this job going to help you if you haven't end up making it into the pros? How? Not going to help you run fast. I'm going to have block. What can it help you with?
People skills.
People skills, interviewing skills. Think about it. How many morons have screwed up professional careers over simple people skill stuff, right? There's a lot of them. It's not just them, unfortunately. It'd be nice if it was just one. It's almost too common, right? Even better than that, and this is the big one, I don't care how good of an athlete you are, your shelf life is little. The average NFL player does not play in the league for a decade. They play about 6 or 7 years. They make a lot of money in a very short period of time. So why can this job help them? Once they graduate, guess who they end up picking to be the ones that are commentators, sports anchors, analysts? They don't pick the one that was a good football player. They pick the one that was good and is good, be able to communicate, knows how to network, knows how to have those things. Otherwise, right? Most people, by the way, are not Hall of Famers in their sport. So a lot of people do it for a period of time and they go on to do other things. You know, I've got many of my friends that played college basketball that never ended up making it into the pros. Some of them played pros. Some of them actually played one of them actually still plays overseas. And you know what? That's like fascinating to me that he still plays overseas. But I thought about it. He's only 33 years old, which means at some point, like he's a geezer in professional basketball overseas. And he's 33. If he's lucky, he'll play till he's 40. And then he'll still have 30 or 40 years of his life, God willing, at least, that he has to figure out what to do with himself, right? And so having those communication skills can help you. Having those business skills, being smart with your money, learning how to manage a lot of money at a young age is also critical, right? I think they said that most professional athletes are broke, divorced, or unemployed within 3 years of finishing their last game. That's a scary statistic because, you know, they don't usually teach a lot about financial management to these young professionals. They have symposiums, I know, but that's something they kind of shuffle through just to kind of get past it. They're starting to do more work with it, which is awesome. But even still, though, it takes, I mean, you got to be good at business. You got to be able to understand your thing. If you want to be a doctor, yes, this isn't going to make you a better doctor, but it will help your bedside manner. It will show you how, if you ever want to open up your own firm or practice, how to be good at managing your money, how to be good at managing other people, because you're still going to have to network and communicate. So whatever your story is, share that with your customers. Because see, that's when you get to the end and ask for recommendations, they're going to want to recommend you to everybody. Okay, does this help at all?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the next thing on getting a bunch of recommendations is making sure, making sure that when you do your presentations, that as you're building rapport, you're looking for connection points on the way into the home. Here's what I mean by that. So let's say you're driving into the neighborhood. Look for houses in the neighborhood that you'd like to do appointments in. What distinguishes them, right? Like maybe there's a door that's very unique, or maybe they got a really cool mailbox, or maybe they've got a lot of kids' toys out in the yard. I always look for the kids' toys. That means they got a lot of kids. It means they're always out and about. I look for signs of life. I look for good gardens. I look for kids' toys. I look for people that are out in their yard. Or just to really remember where we are, because I know that if they've got kids that are out in the yard, people are noticing them. I know that if they've got a great garden, that they're out in the yard, and people are meeting them, right? But I just look for kind of signs of life, and then also look for really cool houses, because then what you can do is when you're there and you're saying hey at the front porch, whatever, talking to your customer, you can actually turn around and point at someone else. Oh man, I couldn't help but notice that house there. It's beautiful. Do you know who lives there? And a lot of times they'll be, oh, that's such and such. I'm like, oh, are they pretty cool? right? Or hey, I couldn't help but notice all the kids' toys out in the yard across the street. Man, how many kids do they have? And sometimes like just one, but it's, you know, he's all over the place, right? It's like, oh, is he pretty cool though? Or are the parents pretty cool? And sometimes they're like, yeah, they're great. Or sometimes they're like, no, they're horrible. You know, but it allows you to kind of communicate. And then at the end, guess what they can't tell you? I don't know my neighbors. They already told you they knew a couple of them right there, right? Or on the way in, if you see another neighborhood that you'd really like to do an appointment in, but you don't know anybody in. It's like, hey, I was driving in, man. I noticed this neighborhood over here on the left. It's called insert whatever name, right? Do you know anybody that lives there? Like, oh yeah, I know a couple people there. Man, those houses are beautiful. Man, that's pretty cool. I'd love to be able to do an appointment there, right? Or whatever the case is, right? I mean, just find that, asking them what, you know, they do for work, you know. And one of the questions I'll say is, hey, when you're not being nice and helping a college kid with scholarships, what do you guys do for fun? Okay. And then a lot of times they'll tell you, and whatever their connections, whatever their activities are, you can kind of relate to them and talk to them about that. Okay. Does that make sense? So doing that is big. And if you could find 2 or 3 connections of each of the big 5, at the end you've automatically got an additional 10 recommendations before you that you can then suggest. The next one is what to do at the end of the presentation. Okay, and there's 4 questions before you get in. Do you ever feel like when you get to the end of the presentation that you feel a little kind of lost or awkward? Right, so okay, you just finished up writing the order or entering it online, and now you've got to like figure out a way to like transition into the actual you know, presentation part, right? Well, here's how you can kind of do that. So you ask a couple of these questions, right? So, right. Here's 3 of them, and I'll give you the magic question later. All right. So Michelle, so how did you like the presentation? Did I do a good job? This is a simple question that or simple 2 questions that you can ask that are really effective. So, hey, how'd you like the presentation? Did I do a good job? Right. And if they say yes, right? Think about it. What are you asking that question, you think? What?
So they could refer you to other people.
Yeah, absolutely, right? People give recommendations because they like you and they like the product, right? So Michelle, how'd you like the presentation? Did I do a good job? I wasn't too pushy, was I? And it's funny, they're like, nah, that was fine, right? You're like, all right, cool. Hey, what'd you think of Cutco? It's pretty cool, isn't it? And so they're like, yeah, it was great, you know? And so then as you say all of that, what ends up happening is they've already told you they like the product. They told you they like you. They said you weren't obnoxious. So they basically have given you a lot of the reasons, right? Why the people give Cutco. Now, let me give you a phrase that you can say right before you ask for recommendations that eliminates any objections. Here's what you say. And I'm going to have to repeat it a few times. But the phrase is, if they have the time, right? So if they have the time, could you think of any reason why somebody would mind looking at Cutco? You know, if they had the time. So if they had the time, could you think of any reason why somebody would mind looking at Cutco, you know, if they had the time? And the reason that's so effective is because what would be the one reason that somebody would mind?
They're busy.
Yeah, they don't have time. And so long as you can eliminate that, then it helps you out, right? So say, if they had the time, could you give any reason why somebody would mind looking at Cutco, you know, if they had the time? And they'll be like, well, no, not if they had the time. You're like, great. Michonne's, you know, go ahead and pull out your cell phone. This is a really important part. Here's you can really help me out. I get paid every time I show Cutco. What's that? The approach, right? So cool. Guys, they've already told you they won't mind. They've already told you like the product. They've already told you that, you know, that you were pushing. I mean, they've given you all the reasons why they're going to give you recommendations. Okay. You guys like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, something else that I'm going to teach you on recommendations. I know your manager's already told you got to have the thing memorized. Have you guys seen the value of a recommendation yet?
Yes.
How much each recommendation is worth to you? You guys have all seen that, right? Where they say, hey, if you get this many, it's worth this much. Okay. Well, something that helped me was I started thinking of myself, instead of looking at it as a brand new representative, I thought about when I was eventually going to be at Bonus Land or at FSM. I started thinking about, hey, I'm going to eventually be at FSM. And I know I'm biased, but I can't think of a better job on the planet to have when somebody's in college and doing this as far as flexibility, great money. I mean, I had buddies that are now doctors or nurses, and they busted their butts when they were in school with all the classes and extra work and everything else they had to do. And a lot of them had jobs. And I had that too. But my job, I could work one afternoon to make as much as my buddies that were working like all the time. Okay. Now, I got into student management, so I did end up working a lot more than just doing the rep position too. But I mean, as far as making great money, there's not a better job out there than being an FSM, selling and making half what you sell. So let's talk about how that works. So let's say you get 10 recommendations. Well, if you get 10 recs, that'll usually equal about 7 appointments, which will equal about 4 sales, which the divisional average right now, I think it's jumped to like $300 or something like that. So let's just say though, you just do the national average of 250. So what that means is it's about $1,000 in total sales, right? So $1,000 times, instead of doing it times your percentage, I times by 50%. So that's $500. So for 10 recommendations, that means every recommendation that you get is worth $50. Okay, so you just think about like and so what I used to start to do in my presentation is I would just think of the customer being there in front of me, and as she was thinking, she had a bunch of $50 bills just kind of floating above her head, right? And every time she wrote one down, it was like her going and just putting them down, right? And if I knew that she just had them up there floating around, and all I had to do was just ask the right question or do the right thing, or sometimes just give enough time, that would eventually get me more appointments, right? I would work hard to help get that. Does that make sense? So I started suggesting different people. So I would work really hard. I'd polish up. I'd get the approach memorized. Guys, it's 8 sentences long. Most of your favorite music videos have more than 8 sentences in it. Okay? Unless your favorite video is like EDM or I don't know, like a Little John song or something like that. Chances are it has more than 7 lines in it, right? Some of you guys have been able to memorize Future's songs. I have no idea what the hell he is saying. Okay, I had no idea. But you have memorized the guttural noises that come out of his mouth. And wait, like, I don't know, you know how to do that. But yet you haven't memorized 7 sentences. I'm an old school guy. I love Common, Razkaz. I love Talib Kweli, even Tupac, and old school Jay-Z, old school Drake, old school Biggie, right? Because they told stories. They weren't about whatever item they would see on a table. Expo, dry erase, whiteboard care. That could become an amazing hip hop video if you put a dance to it, had Soulja Boy sing something catchy to it, and then have Future do the background, right? It'd be an amazing song. It'd be a hit. I guarantee it. We just got to come up with it. We got to reach out to those guys and say, hey, we got it. We got the next thing. It's what Expo whiteboard care, and that could end up being a euphemism for something more dangerous and deadly or something. It could be a type of drink that you get at the club, and they could find a way to make it seem amazing, right? You guys can memorize that, but you won't memorize 7 sentences or 8 sentences that make you tons of money. It blows my mind. Okay. Get it down, guys. It's worth $50 to you. Okay? I mean, it's worth a whole lot. So that's something that helped me, was just thinking of it like that. The other thing is throwing out thought joggers. When you throw out thought joggers, it helps you to get a ton of recommendations. Okay, what are thought joggers? Well, thought joggers are little specific groups that you add on at the end. So once you get your recommendations, and the last thing I'm going to show you guys is how to do a recommendation notebook. Okay, and this thing is pretty awesome too, by the way. But once you get your recommendation notebook, once they recommend you to everybody they're going to recommend you to, okay, you take the list back, however many they give you, right? and so you look at it, and let's say they gave you, like in this case, we got to 11, 12, 13, 14, right? So 14, right? So they're 6 away from getting to a double sponsor. Okay, so then all you do is you say, gosh, Mr. Stones, you're so close to getting to be a double sponsor for me, then I really want to help you out. Okay, and is there any way? Do you know anybody who and then just start throwing out thought joggers. Here's where my thought joggers that I would ask. Do you know anybody that's a doctor, lawyer, engineer? Right? Doctor, lawyer, engineer. Why doctor, lawyer, engineer? Well, because, and dentist too, sorry. Doctor, lawyer, dentist, or engineer. Doctor, lawyer, dentist, or engineer. The reason why those are great professions is in all those cases, they're working with high-level executives all the time, right? You go see a doctor. Anybody seen their family doctor? You got to get an appointment for your doctor. Anybody seen their dentist? Okay, go see your dentist, right? It's a great person to appointments. But think about it. Every time you see your doctor or dentist, you know you're spending money, right? Like, even if there's nothing wrong with you. I mean, you can go there and like, yeah, you seem perfectly fine to me. It's like, okay, great. Well, that'll be $50, right? Your copay will only be this, but you still have to pay your deductible. It goes towards your deductible, right? That's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking the healthcare system yet. But what I am doing is, don't worry about it. But what I am saying is that every time you see your doctor or dentist, you're spending money, right? So it's only natural that you ask them if you could do an appointment with them. I'll tell you guys, every time I've seen a dentist, I've had an order of $600 or more. They also know how much high quality tools cost. They know how much high quality materials cost if they're an engineer or contractor or those sorts of things. They don't look at the total package. They look at the individual materials. They know how much good quality stuff costs. So when you could share that with them, I mean, like dental tools, those little tools they get up in your teeth with, several hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars. So when you talk about, yeah, this was only blank amount, they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Let me get it. I spend more than that on my tools, right? A hairstylist, the person that cuts your hair. Right? I know they know you, right? So, the person that cuts your hair, you should do an appointment with them. Every time you see them, you're spending money, right? And guys, good salons, good stylists, their scissors cost $500 a pop. Yeah, you didn't know that. Ask your stylist. Now, here's the deal. If you go to like Great Clips or like Hair Cuttery or something like that, and you ask them how much their shears are, they may not cost that much. But at a high-end salon, good scissors cost $300, $400, $500. And to sharpen them professionally, every 3 to 6 months costs between $35 and $50 a pop. Right? And do they usually have just one pair of scissors? Nope. If you've been to any place that's worth a darn, they usually have at least 2, right? So just keep that in mind. They have some that work, and I was talking to the lady that cuts my hair, and she was like, I've got some that I use on dry hair that work better. I've got some that work better on wet hair. I've got some that works better for this type of hair, right? This one's done for texture and all sorts of different examples of what it's used for, right? So I would definitely see your stylist. Because you say, you go to somebody that's got 3 pairs of scissors that are worth $1,500. They say, hey, I give you 20 items you're going to have for the next 30 years and never have to sharpen maybe once or twice by the company for free. For $1,200, they're probably like, yeah, that's fine. Right? You cut hair every day, you cook every day. Might as well have good stuff in the home too. Okay? So that's kind of the idea, right? Is having confidence and showing it to those people that are good quality. The other thing I used to ask Ms. Jones, and this is kind of a fun one. Hey, Ms. Jones, who do you know that lives in a castle? Right? Who do you know that lives in a castle? All right? Or who do you know that owns their own plane? And you know what's funny is most of them knew nobody. But sometimes they'd point, they go, you know what, their house is the biggest castle. That'd be a good person to go do an appointment with. Sometimes they'd say, oh, you know what, actually, they fly private all the time. It's like, good to know, right? Now, here's the other thing. I've done this, or I've said that, and they go, oh, yeah, what about such and such? I said, yeah, let's go ahead and put them down. And they would add people that they didn't have on there. And those are some of the best ones they gave. Another one I'd ask, Ms. Jones, who do you know has their own pool? Because if they have their own pool, what I know is that their kids were out during the summer hanging out at the pool, which means they're having to prepare lunch, drinks, and other snacks, fruits, all that sort of stuff to keep their kids hydrated. Plus, they usually if they had their own pool, that means other people would usually come over and hang out at too, right? Which means they knew other people in the neighborhood or like that, right? Ms. Jones, who do you know that has their own pool? Or Ms. Jones, who do you know that if they wanted to, could actually get the whole book if they wanted to? And that's a great one to ask. Right? Another one that you can ask is Jones, who do you know that's famous? And again, sometimes it's like the famous is like, you know, the guy that owns the local barbecue joint, right? That could be a famous person. I know the guy, my barbecue guy, he's kind of a little local celebrity because his food's so good, everybody knows him. But you know what? If I got recommended to him, he could recommend me to a whole bunch of other cool people. And I'll tell you, just give you a quick example, because of connecting and stuff like that. Ted is the guy that I buy all my barbecue from and stuff when I'm catering and doing events and stuff. And so whenever I see Ted, I've introduced Ted to other people. Ted owns Cutco now because of me. And he's also recommended and sent some people to me that own Cutco. You know, we've talked about everything from handguns to, you know, old school vintage trucks to, you know, because we both have an old school vintage truck that we, you know, been kind of restoring and doing stuff. I mean, so it's just the connectivity that you have, and then you meet other people, you know, that you have that are out there too. So by connecting guys, you meet a lot of people, but you never know unless you ask. Okay. And then the other question you got to make sure that you ask is, Ms. Jones, if you had my job, or if I were your son, which 3 people would you call first? Okay. So if I were your son, or if you had my job, which 3 would you call first? That way you're kind of dialing into who the best people to speak to are later. Okay. Other ones I've had people ask for specific neighborhoods or areas of town. Like, for example, when I was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, I used to ask for anybody that lived in Buena Vista, Bermuda Run, or Shamrock Estates. So pick an area of town, pick a country club, and then pick a really nice neighborhood. So you haven't known anybody that lives in, you know, you haven't known anybody that lives in River Club or, you know, down in Johns Creek or over in blank. I've been wanting to do appointments in that area, right? Or whatever, you know, and you guys all know your town, you know, your different areas. I do know that if I was, for example, if I was up near Cumming, Gainesville, that sort of area, I would ask for people that live on the lake. Yeah, you know anybody that lives on the lake. Because you know if they live on the lake, they're constantly, you know, cooking out, grilling out, having people over to go on the lake, and then they're also doing pretty well financially because they're at a house on the lake. It's usually not cheap. Okay. Now, so what's cool is sometimes they'll be like, well, this person doesn't live on the lake, but they got a lake house too. You're like, okay, perfect. I could sell 2 sets. That's fine with me, right? One from the regular house, one for the lake house, right? You know, so I mean, so by asking about that, that's another great thing that you can do to help generate additional appointments. All right, so last thing that we'll do on recommendation, I'll let you guys take a little 5-minute stretch break here. Good time too. All right, is getting a recommendation binder, okay? And what you want to do with the recommendation binder is really twofold. Number 1 is use it to organize all your recommendations, including your sponsors, to help you get more recommendations. But then it also helps you at the beginning when you're doing your presentation. Okay. Remember how we talked about the, just so you know, I'm not just a nice salesperson. But when you have a recommendation binder, you can actually pull out that when you're talking about your goals. So for example, when you're doing the whole, hey, I want to hear show you Cutco, but before I do that, I want to thank you for seeing me. Have you ever heard of Cutco before? No, you haven't. Okay, well, it's, you know, company pays just to do the presentation, but the reason they pay me is because the product is so amazing that, you know, and I am pretty good at my job, so I'll be surprised if something like. The reason why I'm working is you then take out your recommendation binder, and all of the stuff you want to talk about is right here. You're sharing your goals with them. They're feeling a part of your presentation. You're not just there to make a sale and leave. They see that. Does that make sense? You're taking pride in what you do. And at the end, what you can do is, by the way, at the end, I'll show you how you can actually be a sponsor for my automatic sponsorship too. And so then you just set it down. And so that's all you're doing right there. When you get to the end and you go to get to the recommendation part, you just open up, get to the recommendations, and you start flipping. And what you want to do is you want to have it set up so that everybody you're flipping to has given you at least 10. So flip, 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 you get to a clean sheet, and then you hand it to them. So now what are they seeing? Everybody's giving you 10. Guess what's no longer an issue now? Getting 10. It's no longer weird or different. No, see, nobody ever wants to be the first. Nobody ever wants to be the last. Okay? You know, one of my favorite, favorite things to do is to look back at some of the fashion choices of different eras. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like the old school 80s, like the neon green and like the craziness of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and like the Saved by the Bell outfits. You guys don't even know these shows, but do you?
I love Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
All right. Okay, good. You guys know Saved by the Bell?
Yeah.
With Zach and Kelly? All right, this is good. All right, AC Slater and Screech, right? And he took a turn for the worse. But anyways, it's one of those things where, it's funny to look at those outfits, but at one point in time, those outfits were cool. Somebody put it on and said, this is a good idea. And then somebody else said, I kind of like that idea. And the next thing you know, it became kind of the popular, cool thing to do. And then everybody accepted it just as being normal, right? The Skrillex haircut on women, bad idea. But you know what? Somebody did it. Thought, man, that looks really cool. And so then it became more and more popular. And then it was like, oh, I've got that same cut. It's like, you look like a bad prank gone wrong, right? But at the time, people were rocking it. It's pretty cool looking, and so that's the thing is nobody ever wants to be the first, and then nobody wants to be the last. That's the worst, is being last. You don't want to be the one that looks like you missed out. And so if everybody's giving you 10, everybody's giving you 10, everybody's giving you 10, and then you hand them a sheet, they're going to give you at least 10. And then what's cool is you eventually get to where everybody's giving you 15. And then you just do that, and then 20. So then you're showing everybody's giving you 20. And see, that's when you can start to ask, hey, all you need to do, what I need you to do, I'm writing, we're entering the orders to jot down. You can actually take it up from 10 to 15 to 15 to 20 or 20 to 30. So then everybody's giving you 30. In fact, I actually had a rep named John Stonestreet. He used to print out his recommendation forms, and it was on the, the legal paper that looks like this long. It was set up like this, and it had space on it for 35 recommendations. And he used to say, Mr. Jones, so I need you, I'm cleaning up, just to jot down 200 to 300. No, I'm just kidding. All I need is 20 to 30 people so I can get, keep working. Bam. And he would hand it to him, and he would get 25 almost every time. Right? Because people wouldn't go all the way to the end, but they would get pretty darn close. Right? And so so as he was flipping, like he actually would flip, like he would open up the page and it would kind of fold out like this when he was doing his recommendation binder. But everybody was giving him a lot. Okay. So when you come back, as far as handling objections, the biggest objection I'm going to handle, guys, is if somebody says they don't feel comfortable doing that, you're just saying, Mr. Jones, I wouldn't feel comfortable with contacting somebody randomly either. So that's why at the end, I'm just going to give you a text message you can send to people. So all we're doing right now is just writing down the best people, right? Or even better than that, say, Mr. Jones, here's the best part. They can always tell me no. Not going to hurt my feelings. But I just want to make sure I get credit for the sponsorship program. So you can go ahead and write them down. In fact, even if you know for 100% they would tell me no, still put them down. That's fine. You'll be amazed. Some of those people that put down going over there selling sets. Some of them probably already own Cutco that they say they definitely would say no. Right? I had a good friend, Johnny Kane, who, it was the meanest, nastiest aunt that he had. He thought for sure she was going to destroy him. And he got over there, went and did the presentation. They were so rude, so mean, so obnoxious. At the end of the presentation, they started laughing at him. And the reason they laughed is because they'd owned Cutco for 25 years and they were screwing with him the whole time he was doing the presentation. Pulled out all her knives. She had it all. And they ended up buying $1,500 worth of stuff. She ended up giving him 20 recommendations. Like the meanest, nastiest aunt he had was the one that hooked him up the most. My strictest, rudest aunt that I had growing up bought a homemaker set. She bought the biggest order of any of my family. Okay? And she gave me a bunch of recommendations too. So that's the thing, guys, is you can get a lot of success by doing the right things. And by setting up your recommendation binder, it's a very simple but very effective way to create comfort and just honestly expectation of success with Rex. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to take about 5-10 minutes, stretch your legs, use the restroom if you need to. When we get back in, we're going to be talking about building your number of appointments, making deals with customers, selling big sets, dropping down, and writing things down on paper in order to create orders for yourself. So yes, and we're going to show you guys how to do the kitchen system too, which is a lot of fun. So go ahead and do your thing, and we'll be reconvening here in about 5 minutes or so. So the next topic is going to be on how to generate additional appointments and take your business higher with understanding the phone, and then really how to set yourself up for success here long term before we go into the sales part. And so one of the things that I really like to do in order to generate additional appointments is save free stuff as an incentive for them hooking us up with extra items. Okay, so save free stuff. So let me give you an example. Okay, let's say somebody buys a homemaker set. Well, if you take a homemaker set, you divide it by 5, you can give. Let's just make it real easy, right? Divide it by 5, you can give roughly $220 worth of free stuff. Does that make sense? You guys all know how deals work, correct? Well, that's one of the ways you work the deals. You take whatever they buy, divide it by 5, and then that's what you're allowed to hook them up with as an incentive. So what I like to do is when I was doing presentations, I would always give them something that they liked, but I would always save a little bit extra as an incentive for them to recommend me to a bunch. Does that make sense? So for example, let's say a customer buys a homemaker set, give them the shears for free. Well, you're at 112 right there. You still have an extra $100 worth of stuff that you could be able to give for free if you needed to, or if you wanted to help out with recommendations. Okay, why is, what could you give in that case then? You could do a peeler for sure for giving you 20. But what about, did anybody have somebody bought a homemaker and didn't give very many recs at all? Okay, what do you think, what would it take, you think, in order to give them something like the, right? What do you think, like, how many, or rather, what would it take, but how many do you think they would give you if you gave them a butcher knife for free, extra? Or instead of a butcher knife, maybe a petite carver or a petite Santoku, something they don't have, or a cheese knife. Instead of just doing a simple, vegetable peeler free, giving them an $80 cheese knife would probably really motivate them. Does that make sense? So you could throw that out there. It's like, by the way, Ms. Jones, you've already given me 5, but if you're able to get me to be a double sponsor, I can actually hook you up. Right? I can actually hook you up, with the cheese knife for free. Does that make sense? So by giving them extra free stuff, good Lord. I'm in the middle of the sldm right now. I get done at 4. Call me. Bye. End of 4. Okay, so guys, so that's kind of where you double tap works apparently, right? So there you go. There's a perfect example. Call twice. They don't pick up the first time, right? They might actually meet in the middle of a meeting. You got it. Okay. So, all right. So it's my office manager. I'm sure it's urgent, by the way, because she wouldn't have done that normally. All right. But yeah. So when you're with the customer, use that as a incentive. You know the other thing you could do, if you really want to take it higher, give them an extra table knife for every 10 they give you above 10. Think about that, right? So Ms. Jones, we actually have something going on, a program going right now. For every 10 recommendations you give me above a normal sponsor, I'll give you an extra table knife to your order today. So like, for example, if you're able to get me 50, I'll be able to give you an extra 4 table knives for free, which you could easily do on a homemaker set. And think about a homemaker set with 50 recommendations. Think about what those recommendations are probably going to get. A lot of stuff, right? They're usually in pretty good areas. They're usually the right types of customers. It can help you out with a bunch. Okay? Following? Cool. So that's something that can help you out. So take whatever they buy, divide it by 5, and that's how many. That's how much you can give them free stuff. Yeah.
So if you can give them that much free stuff with the recommendation, like every 10 more recommendations,
sure.
You still give them table knives and the $220 free stuff too?
No. Okay. No, you do. Yeah, it's so long as it adds up to the 220. Does that make sense? Okay.
How much is a table knife by itself?
39.
Yeah, the point value is what's most important you need to be considering. Okay, that's cool. So, all right. But so by getting yourself set up in a place where you're you're doing good, you're confident about asking for recommendations, it always makes it a little easier to just give them extra free stuff. Okay? So save some of the stuff you give away for free so that you can offer more when it comes to getting recommendations. Use that in your back, keep that in your back pocket, right? So just what I would do is if I were you, as a new representative, knowing you're trying to build value in the value of Cutco and you still want to hook up customers, just take whatever they buy divided by 10, give that to them for free to close the deal, because Cutco's good. It's going to last. I mean, you give somebody the shears, that's a pretty sweet product to give somebody, knowing that they're going to have it for the rest of their life. Okay? I mean, guys, people will forget your name. They will forget where you're from long after you finish doing the presentation. But they'll remember, they'll be like, oh, is that the demonstration where the kid cut the penny with the scissors? And they'll be like, yeah. They'll remember that. So you give those for free, you're going to have it. All right? Now, I will say this, by the way. One of the sales tips I'm going to give you is not to give the shears for free. You guys pass something you need. You guys pass them. Oh, I didn't know if you're like pass them. You can pass them at the table. I don't care. I'm not crazy. All right. So yeah. So when you're so take whatever they buy, divide it by 10, give that to them for free, and then on top of that, save the extra points to give free stuff for recommendations. Okay. Is that helping a little bit there? Just that little adjustment. Okay, what are some other things that don't cost a lot of money, but that you could throw out for free if you needed to for extra recommendations? Scoop, guys, cutting boards. Cutting boards cost nothing. Trays. Yeah, that's another one, guys. If you get down to like, did you guys know this? That if they buy 3 knives, you can actually add a tray for free to their order and it doesn't cost you any bonus points. It's something that most people don't know about. They just announced it for this summer. Your manager may not even know about it. I didn't know about it until like 2 days ago.
Okay, so if you buy 3 knives, you can add a tray to the set for free for no point value.
Right.
And that would just be the small tray, right?
It's a 5-piece knife and fork tray. That's the one you give them. It doesn't matter what size knives. If you look it up online, it'll say something about tray offer or something like that. Just look it up just to double check me. I don't want to like misquote you. But guys, it's free, costs them nothing. Right? So give them that as an incentive to buy. Hey, Michelle, you get these 3 knives, I'll actually give you a tray for free to store it in. They're like, all right, done. Because if they were to buy it, I mean, you could look it up to see what the actual value is, but of what they had to buy it themselves, you give it to them for free. It doesn't take any point value away from you. And the other thing that it does is that you can then give them something else for free to get you recommendations. So even on a really small order, you may be able to hook them up with a table knife or 2, or a veggie peeler, or an ice cream scoop, or a pizza cutter, or a cutting board, or some other things to help them with helping you. Okay. The other thing, guys, is for your big customers, take care of them. Meaning people that buy a lot, take care of them. Hook them up with free stuff. If they know a lot of people, they're super nice, super cool. You want to take care of them, guys. Just because they don't, like I had customers sometimes they're like, you know what, by giving that away, does it come out of how much money you make? And it does, right? A little bit. So I would tell them, I say, yeah, it does. And they're like, well, you know what, don't give me anything for free then. I still would want to take care of them for helping me out with recommendations. Like giving them something like really cool. It's like, look, Ms. Jones, I know you asked me not to give you anything for free, but look, you're so nice with hooking me up with all these recommendations that I feel obligated to hook you up. I want to hook you up. Oh, but I don't want to come out of money, mate. Don't worry. You've helped me out enough with the recommendations. Okay, she's going to think you're like the greatest person ever. And whenever that person calls, says, hey, tell me about this student, you know, they're gonna rant and rave about you going above and beyond, taking care of them. So take care of those people. Find the mavens. You guys know what the mavens are? Do you know what the word maven means? It means super connector, right? It says people that know everybody. Who are examples of people that could potentially be mavens?
I'd say softball moms.
Boom, here we go. Here we go. All right, so let's just list out a couple of them real quick so you can write them down, right? Homeowner association leaders, PTA leaders, Football team mom. So any team moms, any of you guys play a sport and have a team mom that was kind of responsible for communicating all the information to all the parents, right? By the way, the most number of recommendations we got on a single appointment was a guy named Cole Forrester. He got 357 recommendations on one appointment. Yeah.
Wow.
He's from Roswell, went to Centennial, and he saw the football team mom. She sat down, and you know Centennial? You know Caroline Anderson? It's his older brother. He runs the office down in Pensacola. So yeah, he sat down with the football team mom, bam, 357 recommendations right there. He hooked her up with some good stuff, but think about it, guys. I mean, when you see people that are super connectors, I know. Here are other people that are super connectors. Real estate agents. People that own their own companies. Okay. Principals, pastors, pastors' wives, right? I mean, you see a pastor's wife, chances are she cooks. 100% she knows a lot of people, right? That she has to, right? That's kind of one of her main roles as the pastor's wife, is to make sure that she is knowing everybody in the community, in the congregation, right? So that's a big one. Like I said, so you got people that run their own business, people that are super connectors, people that cut hair for a living, people that are dentists, doctors, lawyers, engineers. You already mentioned heads of. Coaches are also super connectors, people that coach. And guys, one of the things that's kind of cool for you versus when I was a new rep. See, when I was a new rep, parents were not as nearly interconnected as they are today. I would imagine if you were to look at some of your parents may have more Facebook friends than you do. Okay, think about that. You could send a message to every single one of your parents' Facebook friends and say, "Hey, my name is blank. I'm Kathy's son. I'm a student right now at UNC Chapel Hill, and I was reaching out to see if you could help me out with something I'm doing for school. Would you mind helping me out?" And use that Facebook approach to get appointments. And you guys would have a ton. I mean, like for example, like for example, here in my phone, I've got, like, I am not I'm a target market, right? I'm over 33, homeowner. You pull up my contacts real quick so I can, I know whenever Apple's releasing a new iPhone, my phone starts going to crap. It's like as soon as they release a new one, it's like, oh, it's happening. Why? Because my phone's like really slow right now. And I just got it. So, all right. So in my phone right now, I've got 2,943 contacts. Okay. So and guys, I'm 33. I mean, Matt, by the time I'm 42, sorry, 2,942. By the time I'm 40, it'll probably be 3,500, maybe 4,000. And now by that point, I may go back through and clear some out or whatever. But think about it. I mean, some of your parents have lots of connections too. I mean, they were if they're in business in general, or if they were in a fraternity or sorority. I was not in a fraternity when I was in college. I knew a lot of people that were in them, but I wasn't in. If you're in a fraternity, you've got tons and tons of fraternity brothers or sorority sisters. They're there. So you have a lot more people you could see, and you owe it to yourself really to show it to anybody and everybody that you can, because this is the order you want to go in. You want to call your reschedules first, then you call your callbacks, then you call your initial stars, then you call your out-of-towners, then you call your connections. Okay. What are connections? Well, connections are people that you sort of know. Does that make sense? It'd be people like, for example, people that are your neighbors, church people, high schools, sports, mom and dad's cell phones, mom and dad's coworkers, brothers and sisters, friends. people from Facebook. Those are all different connections that you have, which are, guys, those are some of your best demos because they know you, but they don't know you well enough to give you a hard time. Does that make sense? Guys, when they know you, but they don't know you well enough to give you a hard time, it's an amazing appointment because it's that smooth transition from where you know them to where you don't at all. Okay? You can feel confident and confident being able to say different things, right? Try different stuff. Okay? And it branches you out. And what these connections are so great for also, guys, is it gets you out of that social circle that you're kind of initially in. It can get you into all sorts of groups. Church stuff. Okay. Guys, church is such a great one, because church people, even if they don't know you, they pretend to know you, right? You know what I mean? Like there are some people I call from church. I'm like, hey, I don't know me to rings the bell, but I go to church for the Holy Family. I'm like, oh yeah, I know you. I'm like, all right, great. So I'd go book the appointment. I'd get over there, and I knew they didn't know me, and then they knew that I knew that they didn't know me, right? And so I usually just throw out there, hey, so what'd you think of the homily last week, right? And they're like, oh, and then they would start talking about it, or even better, they like make it up because they know they weren't there. They're like, oh man, well, it's pretty good, Kind of fell asleep a little bit. It was kind of long, But yeah, so it was just one of those things where it was just always funny doing presentations to people from church because it was, it was one of those things. And here's what's really weird. There was a lot of them that they said they know me. I had no clue who they were. And they knew me. They're like, yeah, how's your dad Bill doing? I'm like, whoa, this is creepy. You know me. Right? Because church people are nosy, right? Just like neighbors are nosy. Even if you don't think your neighbors know you, you're a kid. Your neighbors know you. I know every single one of my neighbors' kids. Why? Because if I see them walking out, I'm either one, like, are they okay to be out this young by themselves walking around with a dog, right? That's the first thing that goes to my head if they're real low. Or number two, it's like, are those the clowns that ring my doorbell in the middle of the night, right? And that was actually only happened one time, and it was totally my doorbell, and I totally pranked these little kids after that. I felt bad about it. My doorbell went off in the middle of the night, so I went out there with like doesn't matter what I went out there with, but I went out there with something, and it scared the crap out of them. And turns out that it was just the doorbell messing up, and they just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it was very funny. It was very funny because I like jumped out from the bushes and scared the crap out of them. They were freaking out. So I got to so I'm sure at some point their parents know me now too, which is fun. But it was they would never say because it was 2:30 in the morning. So why are they going to tell their parents how they met me? But anyway, so it was one of those things where you meet your neighbors, right? And even if you don't know your neighbors, you know of them, and it's a common enough connection where you can do the appointment. So you owe it yourself to show it to them. Now I told you earlier that if you did 20 appointments, or sorry, if you did 20 calls a day, it would lead to making 10 grand in income this summer, right? Now you got to be consistent with it. You can't. This isn't something you could kind of fake. Okay, you can't like take a day off and then be good if you just make 20 calls the next day. But let me show you how this works. This is a great motivator for me because see, when I was brand new, my favorite thing was not making phone calls. I liked doing the appointments. I liked meeting with customers. It was fun getting out in the sun and kind of being out, so I wasn't stuck behind a desk all day, right? But I just wasn't crazy about getting my schedule set up. Maybe it was the potential no, right, that would freak me out. Whatever it was, I didn't like it. So check this out. If you make 20 calls a day times 7 days a week, how many calls a week is it?
140.
140, right? Now, how many calls does it take you to book up an appointment? Maybe 4, 5, 6, right? The actual ratios that we've studied have been, if you know them well, for every 4 calls you make, 1 person picks up. If you know of them, sort of, kind of, it's like for every 7 calls you make, 1 picks up. If you don't know them at all, it's maybe one out of every 15 or so picks up, okay? But check this out. Let's just call it 1 out of every 10. So that means you're booking up, for every 10 calls to book up 1, that means you're booking up 14 appointments for the week, right? Now, did I say that I said make calls 7 days. Did I say you have to do demos 7 days?
Yeah.
No. I'm just saying you're making calls. So literally this could be something like Saturday, you're wanting to take the day off, but you just carve out, an hour in the morning to make 20 calls. Or if you know for a fact you're going to be taking Saturday completely off, you make 40 calls on Friday or Wednesday night instead. Does that make sense? But anyway, so if you book up 14, all right, so 14 appointments times 60%. Anybody got the math on that?
60% of 14.
Mm-hmm.
8.4.
Okay. So 8.4 times it by divisional average of $300. Okay. $300. And what do you get?
2,500.
Okay. So 2,520. You times that by, you might need a calculator at this point, but if you times that, there's currently 14 weeks left in the summer. Let's say you take 2 weeks off completely, and then maybe you ramp it up on other weeks. Like maybe, for example, this week and next week, you just go nuts because we got the big contest, and then you kind of scale it back a little bit from that. But if you take 2520 times 12, what do you get?
32,400.
Okay, so 32,400.
It's just 30 and then it's 240, right?
Yeah.
It's 30,000.
I got 30.
I did that in my head too.
What is it?
30 to 40.
Pretty good for being in the head. All right, so here's the deal. From 0 to 20,000, okay, you will have made $5,000 in income. From 20 to 30,000, you will have made an extra 3,500. Okay, so that's $8,500 in sales just right there. And then on this extra 250, you're making 40%. So you're getting right in that $8,000 to $9,000 range. And guys, here's what's cool about that. You add on what you've already sold, most of you guys will have made your 10 grand. And this is just over the next 12 weeks. We technically go, like I said, for 14. So if you make 20 calls a day, you'll make your 10 grand for the summer. Does that make sense? Okay, so just doing that simple little math there helps you to put in perspective. Because I know for me, that was always the toughest part. It was like just getting the call scheduled. Now, here's the other thing that can help you. If you're like nervous to make even one call, check this out. This shows you how much each call that you make is. We did the example of 10 calls equals 1 appointment, right? Okay. So let's say you make 20 calls. That's going to equal 2 appointments times 0.6, which is 1.2 sales times 300. What is that? 360. Right? So 360 CPO times this by whatever percentage you're at, right? So let's just say you're a minimum of 15 right now. Okay, if you're at higher, you can do higher. So what is that? That makes it 54.
Yep.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So $54 in income, which means for every phone call that you make, bring it all the way back, divide that by 20, how much is that worth? What's that? What's good?
2.8.
Let's just do the, somebody's got a calculator real quick. 54 divided by 20, what do you get?
2.7.
What is it?
2.7.
$2.7 every time you make a phone call.
Yeah.
So every time you dial a number, you're making $2.70. That helped me to make my initial phone calls really quickly. Here in Atlanta, you have to dial all 10 numbers. Some of you guys don't have to dial all 10, but we do, right? So you dial all 10 digits, right? Every time you hit a digit, it's like a quarter. It's like, boop, you're dialing in quarters, right? You make a call and it's the wrong number. You're like, doesn't matter. I just made $2.70, right? You call somebody, the husband's a jerk to you. Say, thank you, sir. You just made me $2.70. Then you call the next person, right? Just think of it like that, and that'll help you. And if you really want to make a lot, just, instead of doing it like this, just say, you know what? You're making half of what you sell. Okay, and when you're at half what you sell, you're making 180. Divide that by 20. Every call you make is worth $9. So that means in that case, almost every time you're hitting a button, it's $1. Something else to help me with phone motivation is I used to take, pictures of things that I really wanted, and I would put them in the back of my. This is like the old school flip phone eras, right? Where I used to put the little screen, a little menu in the back. I would put something that like I really wanted to get. So like, for example, my dream car from the time I was about 16 on, I had different levels of cars that I wanted to get. When I was 16 years old, I sat down with my dad and I said, Dad, I think I've got the sound like materialistic. I wasn't 16, right? I'm like, I know the cars, Dad. I know what I'm going to get. He's like, all right, well, what is it? I said, when I'm first doing well, I'm going to get a BMW M3. You know, and then after that, I'm going to trade it in and I'm going to get a Porsche 911. And then after that, I'm going to trade that in and I'm going to get a Ferrari, right? And and since then, my tastes have kind of changed at the high end, but it's still, I mean, it was funny. I remember when I was a rep, I opened it up and I used to have a picture of the M3, you know, and it was a picture that I took on my flip phone of okay, it was a picture on the flip phone that I had of this green M3. I mean, I don't even like the color green, but it was a green M3 that used to go to the YMCA, okay, where I used to work out at. And I was like, man, it's such a sweet car, you know? And so from that time till I was 23, when I bought my first M3, that was like the motivator for me. It's in the back of my phone, you know? And then after I did that, I changed it to a 911. Okay? And then when I got my 911, I changed it again, except this time I didn't really care to have, you know, the Ferrari because I test drove it, didn't really like it, right? So so now what I got in the back of my phone is pretty simple. It's my dog, okay? So, I mean, it literally is my man, right? My boy Tyson. Why? Because that's what matters. He's my boy, you know? Like I stopped caring about the material goods a long time ago, right? Instead, I just got things like the other things that motivate me. So like so I've got that there, and on the inside of my phone now is a picture of the Colosseum in Rome that I took when I was out running at 4 a.m. in Rome, you know, last year or 2 years ago. You know, and that's one of the things I'll do is whenever I go to a foreign country, I usually wake up early and I'll just go run. I'll run to all like the monuments and stuff like that nobody can get close to during the day, and I just get these really cool photos, and you know, and it makes you feel kind of like you're I Am Legend a little bit, right? Because you're running through these like amazing cities, and you're literally the only one out there. It's pretty fun, but it's a good time. Plus, it's a good way to get close. So I was able to get right up into the Vatican. You know, when I go to Thailand in December, every morning I'm going to run from the beach up to this Buddhist temple, and you see like elephants and monkeys and stuff like that. So it's just a really cool experience. But I have stuff like that now because to me that is a lot cooler than just having some fun cars, which those are fun too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're fun, but I had something always in the back that would inspire me or motivate me. And so having something like that, because if instead you see that every time you pull it up, it's reminding you why you're working hard. Maybe it's the alma mater you want to get into, right? Maybe it's something you want to buy, and you could change it up, right? You know, Facebook has temporary profile pictures, but you could do a temporary one for a push, right? Maybe there's something you want to earn or win, and maybe you want to win that trip to Mexico. So you take a trip to Mexico and you put it in the background of your phone or something, or maybe you want to save up enough money to be able to take your mom or dad to another country. You know, that's been something that I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to have my mom come to a couple of our national payoff trips that we have. That's pretty cool. You know, she's able to go to Prague. She went to Ireland a couple of years ago, and we went to Ireland, and that's a lot of fun to be able to have those types of experiences. So find something that motivates you. Put it in the background of your phone. It'll get you amped up. The other thing is find a phone jam accountability partner, somebody that you sit mano a mano across the desk from, in the same room as, and that's like your person. And it's like, hey, look, it's you versus me, you know, and we're gonna make this happen. I have other reps that motivate themselves other ways during the phone jam. They'll buy a bag of Skittles, right? And they'll lay out the Skittles, and every time they book one, they'll eat 5 Skittles. Every time they get a no, they'll eat 2 Skittles, right? And every 10 calls, they'll eat another Skittle, right? So they're ripping through these calls so they can eat their Skittles, right? But whatever you do something motivates you. I had another guy that used to eat potato chips that way, right? He just not healthy. Don't recommend either of those. But you know what? Find something that motivates you. Get yourself into the proper mindset. I will tell you, there is a couple times that are the best times to make phone calls. And I'm going to share those with you right now too, because there is if you want to maximize the time to be able to make calls, you got to make them at the right time. So here's the best times for us to make phone calls. Actually, I think I've got it on here. Oh shit. All right, so there we go. Okay, so here's the best times to make phone calls. Okay, if you want to get a lot of appointments booked up, make calls during this time. Okay, so number one, okay, is the formula for success is Sunday evening, the Kickstart Jam 6 to 9:30, Wednesday night from 7 to 9 during the team meeting, and then Thursday night is also a great time to get a hold of people. Okay? So Sunday evening, Wednesday night, Thursday night, all great times to get a hold of people. Okay? Questions on that? No? Another time that's great to get a hold of people, mornings. Guys, this is and was my secret weapon as a rep. I told you that little story about the car and sharing and carpool and all that business, right? Well, morning phone time is an amazing time because think about it. Now depending on where you live, it's either 7:30 to 8:30 or from 8 to 9. Right? If you're in a big city though, guys, 7:30 to 8:30 is when you're going to get a hold of most people. Right? And I know you may be like, man, I don't want to wake people up. Guys, you're not going to wake people up. If you're going to wake people up, if you wake them up at 8 o'clock, you're going to wake them up at 9 o'clock. If you're going to wake them up at, because chances are they're sick. Okay? Does that make sense? Like they're ill, they're sleeping in. It's like, it's funny. We had 12 people, I think, here this morning making calls. One person woke up one person, and that customer even said on the phone, yeah, I needed to get up anyway. She's like, I've just been sick, and I've just been needing to get up. Thanks for calling. But it wasn't even that big a deal. We had somebody 2 days ago. This was my favorite one. This was a Saturday morning. No, sorry, it was Friday morning. So it was Friday morning. They called and they said, oh, yeah, sorry, I'm just, you woke me up. Why did you wake me up? And it was like 9:30 in the morning. Right? And she's like, well, yeah, and the rep even said, hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to wake you up. I just figured most people were kind of up and at work and moving by now. And she's like, oh, well, yeah, I had company over. So, I saw them off this morning and then I laid back down. It's like she's already up. She's having to lay back down. Does that make sense? I'm just going to tell you, my mom worked third shift. And if you called her beyond 9 a.m. in the morning, 10 a.m., she's asleep at 10 a.m. because she has to sleep during the day in order to make it to work by 9 p.m. She gets up at 7 at night and then gets off at 7 in the morning. She would go in from 9 to 7, or still does actually. Okay, so if you call her too late in the morning, she's going to be asleep. She'll be angry. Or not, she wouldn't be angry. She's a saint. But, she would be, like, not super lucid at that moment in time, right? She'd be, like, in her first REM cycle. But you guys, think about why is the morning such a great time, not to call your buddies, but to call homeowners and families.
Because I headed to work.
Heading to work, and what did they just have? Coffee. So they're fired up, man. That is the best they feel all day. It's before they've been beat down with deadlines from work. Their boss hasn't given them any crap, right? Yeah, they may be in morning traffic and they're not fired up about that, but there was an old Frank Sinatra quote. He said, I feel sorry for people that don't drink because when they wake up, that's the best they feel all day. So think about that. Unless you're calling a bunch of alcoholics, that means morning phone time is pretty good, right? And if you're calling a bunch of alcoholics, maybe call them in the afternoon, right? Just don't call them too late, right? So they'll forget you called, right? Yeah, they won't remember, right? I misremembered that. All right, so, guys, I'm just going to tell you, for me personally, if you want to get a hold of me, you got to call me early. I'm constantly getting calls throughout the day, but I'm busy. I got stuff I'm doing, okay? Because here's what happens. Here's my typical schedule. I'll get up in the morning at 5 or 4:45. I go to the gym for an hour. I get back. I get ready. I take my dog out for a little walk or quick run. I get ready, get to the office by 7:30 right now for the next 2 weeks because we're in this big contest. On a normal everyday week, I'm in the office. Normal typical week, I'm in the office at 8. But I'm still getting to the gym and going there for an hour Monday through Friday. And so so the best time the most fired up and jacked up I am all day is right there in that like 6:30 to like 8 o'clock time frame. That's when I'm conquering the world, so to speak, right? I'm feeling good because I just got my workout in, solving all of life's problems, mapping out the day, thinking about my schedule, You call me at 9, you may be able to get me, you may not be, just depends on what time my meetings start. So I'm just telling you, this morning phone time is great. And then really any day, 5 to 6 is tough if you're in a big metro Atlanta area. But like in Columbus, I think 5 to 6 is probably solid. If you're in a branch territory, solid. If you're in the country, solid, right? But if you're in a big Atlanta, you probably want to wait till about 6 or 7. 6, 7 during the day is also a decent time as well, okay? And so when you're making these calls, guys, just keep track of when you're finding is best to get a hold of people and just write it down, right? Look at your call trackers. Say, okay, I'm getting better success right now calling people at this time, okay? I'm getting worse success calling people at this time. But you need more than just one day to figure that out. For me, morning phone time was kind of my best, but my favorite, because then I didn't have to worry about making calls at night. I could either do demos or hang out with friends. I wanted to protect that a little bit, okay? So making calls at the right time is critical to setting yourself up for success. Any questions on this? All right, a couple of phone keys. Smile when you dial, it works. If you're in a good mood to talk to people, it works. Number 2, get them to laugh. If you get them to laugh, they're a lot more willing to book up with you. So if they ask you how long the appointment takes, just say, well, not too long. Ms. Jones, only about 6 or 7 hours, but I'll bring my sleeping bag, right? And they usually like, what? You're like, no, I'm just kidding. My part's only about 30, 45 minutes, and then after that, it's up to you, okay? If they ask, what are you selling? The answer should be, what are you buying? Nothing? Well, in your case, I'm not selling anything. But what I'm showing is really good kitchen knives and stuff for the garden, right? So it's just very basic, you know what I mean? You get them to laugh and they're feeling good. They say, what are you selling? You could also say baby alligators, inflatable dartboards, underwater screen doors, right? Be careful with some of the kind of the funny, quirky ones because some people don't pick it up. They're like, inflatable dartboards. Yeah, it doesn't work. You're right. Okay. Yeah, so sometimes some of you guys are like, oh, I just got it. Yeah, don't do that one a lot, right? You have to really be making sure you're maybe calling some tech parents, right? Just make sure that, make sure they're pretty with it so that way when you say that one, they actually can laugh. They get it's like hilarious. Because you say underwater screen doors, they're like, wow, I don't want a screen door underwater. It's like, no, it's a joke, Ms. Jones. Wake up. All right. So, but no, so you want to make sure to get them laugh. If you get them to laugh, again, a lot more willing to see, okay? So the last thing I want to talk about for a little bit is increasing your sales. And then after that, I'm going to have you guys just fill out some basic information for me and email me so that I can be able to review it and be able to help work with you a little bit. So on the topic of driving sales a little bit, the most important thing that I can tell you is that people buy for 2 reasons. They buy because of logic and they buy because of emotion. Okay? Okay, so logic and emotion. Right. Any sales? Big orders come in?
Couple small.
Did Brett get that SIG locked down?
Yes, he did.
All right. So logic is why it makes sense for people to buy. People buy Cutco. Motion is me or I buy Cutco. Okay? Ideally, you get both there. So the logic is why it makes sense for everybody to get Cutco. And I think everybody logically would say, you know what, it makes sense to get Cutco, right? And think about it. They have it forever. Something you buy. I mean, it makes sense to buy something once, you're going to keep it forever, right? Or if you're going to use it every day. I think that logically makes sense. But emotionally is when customers are saying to themselves, you know what, this is for me. This is made for me. So how do you do that during the presentation? Well, there's a couple of different ways. The first way is before you go into the features and benefits, before you start talking about the product, what you want to say is you want to say, you know, Ms. Jones, before I show you Cutco, if you were to design the perfect knife for you, what features would you want it to have to make it perfect for you? And what are they going to tell you?
Cooking habits.
Maybe. You know what most people say? I want something that's going to stay sharp. I want something that's going to be dishwasher safe. I want something that's going to be comfortable. No matter what it is they say, what's it going to be? Us. Yeah, it's going to be us. So no matter what they end up saying, they're going to say us. And so what's cool is as they're seeing this, when you're going over the benefits of Cutco, they're going to say, you know what, this is me. I need this, right? You guys ever had that before where, like, most people do this type of shopping when they're buying clothing or shoes or something like that. You know what I mean? Because you don't probably, I doubt any of you at this moment in time need more clothing. You might, but most people don't need more clothing. I mean, they have clothing that could get them by if they needed to. But you find something you really like and you want to get it, right? Or it's like, man, this is totally me. You guys ever heard somebody say that, or maybe you said that? It's like, this is me. All right, you put on that shirt, or you put on the shoes, you're like, all right, I could do some damage to this thing, right? You feel confident, it builds you up. You've never done that, I'm sure, right? You've never tried something on and been like, this is made for me. You never said that? Yeah. All right, so I'm just making sure you smile. All right, cool. All right, so when you say that though, right? When customers are able to go through the presentation, they go, okay, this is for me. And they're gonna feel good. The other thing is when you're going through it, like when you get to, for example, the guarantee. That means I'm not going to waste your time with going over every little detail. I'm just going to cover the main steps for you. And what happens is now they're feeling like you're doing them a favor. Okay. Using the phrase, do you ever eat this? Do you ever do this? The do you evers are huge whenever you're talking about individual knives. Yeah, we talk about that trimmer. Ms. Jones, the great thing about the trimmer is it's a utility tool. For example, do you ever eat tomatoes? They're like, yeah, I eat tomatoes. Like, awesome. Well, sometimes when you try to cut a tomato with a dull knife, it squishes, makes a big mess. Well, Cutco, you don't have to worry about it because it zips right through and doesn't make a mess at all. So you say, do you ever do this? They say yes. Then you paint the picture on it. What are they not going to tell you at the end? I'm not going to use the trimmer because you've already told them that they would. Does that make sense? So getting a yes on each tool helps by using the do you ever phrase and then painting a picture of how much better it's going to be with Cutco. Okay. You know who does a really good job of that? Infomercials. You ever seen infomercials? Does this look like your yard? Does this look like your grill? Does this look like your insert blank, right? Have you ever had this problem? And it just shows you something that you've experienced before. It catches your attention. You're like, okay, I'm listening. Yeah, what do they say? First you had my attention, now I'm interested or something. What is that? What's that line from Django? That Leonardo DiCaprio has. Said first you had such and such, now you have my attention or something. And what that does, that's kind of like with customers. Logically, it makes sense for people to have, Cutco. But emotionally is where people say, you know what, I'm in. This is for me. Okay? And the more you can do that with customers, the better. Okay? The other way you do it for them is as you drop down, whatever reason they tell you they're not going to get something, it's the reason why you go down to the next set. So like say, for example, it's mostly going to be affordability, right? And that's usually the answer you hear. Oh, I can't afford it. And guys, the truth is that they can afford Cutco. If they can't afford anything, it means that they are really, really struggling. And you probably should never schedule that presentation for them. Because we have stuff that's $4. I mean, if they don't have $4 to reserve their first call special, to be able to get hundreds of dollars worth of free stuff, like we showed up there earlier, that's real problematic. Because that means that they're probably, think about it. It means they're going to be behind on mortgage payments, means they're going to not be able to afford groceries, means they're not going to be, there's a lot of other things there, right? So part of your job is to make sure you get through the smoke screen, right? And you guys know how you get through a smoke screen? You know the question you ask? May know? Okay, so somebody says at the end of the presentation, they can't afford it. Here's how you get rid of the smoke screen. It's very simple. It sounds rhetorical, but it works. You say, Ms. Jones, no problem. If you could afford it, would you get it? So you say, if you could afford it, would you get it? And if they say yes, what does that give you permission to do? To drop down, right? to fix it, to work with them, call in, get a better deal, do the trade-ins, do all sorts of stuff, right? If they say no, what do you know? That's not the real reason. Does that make sense? If they say no, that's not the real reason. So before you go any further, you got to figure out what the real reason is. All right? All right. So, Doug, can you call Shelby real quick, please? Thank you. All right. So, so if they say no, that's not the real reason. You got to figure out what it is. But let's say it really is affordability. Like they say, yeah, I mean, if I could get that homemaker, I really would. It's just that, like I said, I just don't have the money. Like, hey, no problem. Okay. Something else you can do to make sure they realize it's a good investment is you say this. You say, okay, cool. Well, can you think of anything you could buy once, use every single day for the rest of your life, and it's guaranteed to work perfectly? And they'll usually say no. Right? And then what you say, so would you at least agree it's a good investment? Well, for that investment, we actually have investment options, which is where we can actually break it up over 5 months interest free, and it would only be $266 today, which only ends up being about $65 out of your weekly budget. You think you could squeeze that in your budget? Right? And when you say it like that, you're working with them in their reason. Does that make sense? Let's just say they still say no. Say, okay, great. Well, you know what? And then the mistake I see people do when they're new is they're excited about the homemaker, and then all of a sudden it's like, they drop down and they're not as excited. I know I had a buddy of mine, actually sibling of mine, that was kind of like that. They were all fired up about getting something really big, like for Christmas. And if it wasn't that exact, like if it was something a little bit smaller, it was like tragic, right? It's like, man, be grateful, right? But the whole point is like when you're with customers, it's kind of the same way. If they see your energy level way up here for the homemaker, and then you drop down to the galley and you're not excited, yeah, that's they're not going to be excited about it either. Okay, so you got to make sure your enthusiasm's up even more. In fact, if anything, think about it. If you drop down to the galley, what should your enthusiasm level do? It should go up. Why?
Make them more excited.
Because you're getting closer to what they can actually afford. And then the customers will react too. Because think about it, right? When you're any of you guys try to save up to buy something before, what happens is you start to get closer and closer and closer to what you're about to be able to afford. You get fired up, man. You start like saving, pinching pennies. You start doing like all sorts of like little extra things that you can get there. You don't get less excited. And guys, if customers are not, if they get less excited as you drop down to something they can't afford, which is getting Cutco, then either it's not really affordability or they're seeing your lack of enthusiasm in it. So one thing you could do to kind of help with that is think about it. If they don't get that set, the homemaker set, whenever you drop down, get completely off of it and drop to something that you are excited about. Okay, because guys, if you knew, okay, so let's say they're excited about the homemaker. Let's say you got the customer that's right there, and you get excited and for whatever reason it doesn't work out, and they bought a galley. If you know going into that demo they were going to buy a galley set, wouldn't you still be pretty excited? Yeah, so don't be bummed out when you're on the presentation dropping down, right? Go in there and tell yourself you're gonna get a homemaker set, but then if you drop down, you need to, and then sell them off of the homemaker. So let me show you. So somebody doesn't buy the homemaker, you say, hey, Michelle, it's the great thing about the galley set. It's for people that really like that homemaker, but it's a little bit too much for their budget. And what's awesome is that we also puts in the knives you'll use the most by taking out the knives you'll use the least. And the galley is awesome because it actually is only blank amount each month. Go to starter sets. I get like starter sets is where I get fired up that everybody could afford a starter set. How do I know it? Because I know as a broke college kid, I could have afforded a starter set. Okay? I could have afforded a starter set. Because think about it, a starter sets break down to being between 20 and 40 bucks a week. That's not that much. That is a very, very, very cheap date. Okay? I wish, right, that dates would be that cheap all the time, but they're not. You think about it, how much does a date cost? Like, let's say you and your girlfriend go out on a date, or your boyfriend go out on a date. How much is it going to cost to go on an actual date? Not. Yeah, no, I'm not talking like, hey, babe, let's just go grab a milkshake. Or, by the way, those are some of the best dates ever, anyway. By the way, right? I'm just telling you, they are. You know,
Free ones are the best.
right? What's that?
So free ones are the best.
Free ones are the best, but meaningful ones are the best. Let's be real. Okay, you can have an amazing time. You want somebody you could be with, or you can have an amazing time at a mega steakhouse, or you can have an amazing time just chilling out in the park or the beach. I get it, but still, you know, if you never go out somewhere nice, it's a little annoying, right? You need to take them out nice every once in a while. Okay, so you go somewhere nice. It's going to cost you $60, right? I guess that's not going crazy. As I had one where I tipped more than that, twice. Okay, in the same night, same person, by the way. But no. Before you get the wrong idea. It's one of those things where we went in one place. We went in one place to go get dinner. The table wasn't ready, so I said, you know what? Let's just have fun. Let's go hang out somewhere else first, then we'll come right back. So my tips both times were more than that. Okay, and so guys, you just got to keep in mind that, you know, for a customer to spend $20 to $40 a week is nothing. It's a fill up gas. It's taking the kids out to pizza. It's going to McDonald's or Wendy's. Zaxby's is almost $40 for a family of 4. Okay, it is. I mean, everything you add a la carte, right? You know, I'm just gonna tell you. The other morning, I took my team to Waffle House because we were having a big all-day phone jam and everything else. I spent $110 at Waffle House to feed, you know, some of our team, right? Because family of 4 going to Waffle House is almost $40 nowadays. Okay, so do you see why I say that $20 to $40 for a family is really pretty reasonable? Because I guarantee you, if they get that, they're going to be cooking in at least one more time a week. And so here's the other thing that I'll tell you. If you get really excited about the starter sets, customers will get excited about it because it still comes in a block. It still comes with the shears for free. So when you drop down and you say, Ms. Jones, I mean, you know, the great thing about these starter sets is they're so popular because we've got multiple options, so you can get the perfect one for you, and it's definitely going to be able to fit in anybody's budget. See how you did that? Now they're not going to tell you at the end it won't fit in their budget. Because you know, and they know they can afford $20, $30, right? I actually had this happen, unfortunately, when I was a representative. I had a lady one time try to tell me that she couldn't afford a trimmer broken up over 2 months. Back in the day, the trimmer was right around $50. So you know, break it up over 2 months, talking $25, $30 right after tax. Not much at all. And so lady's like, yeah, I just can't afford it. You can't afford it. I mean, she's in a great house, an awesome home. She told me she couldn't afford it. And so like, I'm sitting there, and she's like, I mean, I would if I could, I just can't, you know, blah, 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 blah. Right? I'm like, all right, fine, no big deal. So I was getting recommendations. I'm sitting there getting recommendations. At the end, her neighbor comes over. And she's like, hey, I'm taking my dog to the pound, or not the pound, sorry, to get, taking my dog to the vet to get, you know, wash and nails clipped and all that stuff. Did you want me to take yours too? She's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. She's like, well, it's probably about $30, $40 and do everything. She goes, oh, okay, Carl, no problem here. You know, just literally takes cash out of her pocket. And she had the cash she said she didn't have to be able to buy a knife sitting in her pocket. Okay, so just understand that most often when they say they can, they really can't. It's just about showing you a value or need. Does that make sense? Now let me give you some extra tips on, yeah.
I'm really curious about what happened with the woman.
What?
Like, what'd you do in response?
I just started laughing. Some issues, really. All right, fair enough. So I just laughed. I mean, it's just funny because I knew she was going to have that knife for the rest of her life if she'd gotten it. And that dog would be dirty probably as soon as it got back from the vet. Because it'd probably go running outside and get, you know, rolling around in its own feces or something.
Cute.
Just having a good time, you know? Right?
Is that a good time?
Dude, a lot of kids like playing, you know, they call it fun with feces. If you ever seen the movie, this TV show, The League.
No.
TV show, The League.
Yes,
It's a great
actually,
TV show.
that's
Yeah.
a great show.
They call it fun with feces. All right, so anyway. That's being recorded great. All right, so let's show how the drop down process works. Okay, so when you're dropping down, you know, most people will say no 4 or 5 times before they say yes. Okay, try it with your friends. You know, I had 2 different roommates in college. My buddy Justin, one of the most stubborn human beings in the whole world, right? That's like 6, 7 times for him to go grab bite to eat, right? Every Tuesday, our whole crew at the house would go grab bite to eat. You know, some of us bring our girlfriends, some of us would just, you know, they would just roll solo, but we'd always end up there, right? Every Tuesday night. Okay, and so we're sitting there at the place eating, you know, Monterey's, and we always love it, right? So Justin would always do this whole thing where he'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go tonight. I'm good. You know, like, oh, come on, man, you know you're going to go. He's like, I don't know. And he'd always whine. And so I'd always get ready. I'd be getting out of the shower. I'd then be getting, like, dressed. And so I'd be like, hey, Justin, you going to come? He's like, no, I'm not. So about the time I'd get to the door would be the time when he'd always be like, well, hey, well, hold on. I'm going to go, right? And so then I'd have to, like, wait for him, right? So I'd always try to, like, so I realized I had to start earlier with him. So like on the way back from the gym, for example, I'd say, hey, man, you're definitely going out tonight, Monterey's, right? He'd be like, no. So I'd start working on him, like, through the process that I eventually get it so that he was in the shower about the same time I would, you know, get in the shower. So that we were done at the same time. He'd come down the stairs and we'd roll. You know what I mean? You know, then the next roommate, Neil, was the complete opposite. Neil was like 1.5. I'm like, Neil, you want to grab ID? But no. I'm like, sure, Dick. Okay, I'll go. Right, that was just Neil. He just go with the flow, didn't care, totally cool, right? So like literally Neil could be in the middle of like, you know, he could be in the middle of taking a nap. Like, Neil, you want to go grab Monterey? He's like, roll out of bed. He's like, yeah, I'll go, right? And he would just get up and go, right? He was like the guy on the couch. He just didn't care, right? He'd go, he'd be down for whatever. So try it with your friends. You know, how many times you have to say no to yes. So as you're dropping down, okay, what would happen if you started a little bit higher? What would happen to your average order? It would go up a little bit, right? And so there's a couple different ways you can do that. The first way is, you know, you already start with the homemaker set, then you got the galley, then you got your starters, then you got your customized options, and then you got like one knife, right? Okay, so that's kind of your drop down process. If you're in Alpharetta or you're in the pilot office here, it's, you know, the big 3 sets, right? Then you got starters, then you got customized, then you got one item, right? Same thing, just different packaging, right? So that being said, as you drop down, what you got to do is throw in those trade-in options. Trade-ins would be where you sell the basic set and you give the table knives free. What does that do for you when you do that? It adds an extra drop down, right? It adds an extra step to get a no out of the way. See, the beauty of throwing in this trade-in right here is not necessarily you're going to sell, you know, more of it, but that you'll get a no here, so maybe you'll sell more galleys or starters or something else, right? Let me give you something else you can do to kind of increase your average order size. So whenever you get down to the starter sets and above, just add in the shears as part of the set, okay? And I would do that with the homemaker too, by the way. Just add it in. So for example, instead of selling the basic essentials, what's the basic essentials? I know it's $110 a month, but what is it, 504? 505. I see 504 boys, old school, no limit Master P, right? But yeah, so 505, right? So 505 plus 112 is how much? 617, right? So instead of selling the basic essentials at 505, you say, Ms. Jones, the basic essentials with the shears is only 617. And we actually break it up over 5 months interest free. And if you get that today, I can give you $120 worth of free Cutco. See how you do that? So just add the shears into all the starter sets as like a part of the set. These guys, nobody is upset about getting the shears. I've never had customers say, man, that was a dumb purchase. No, they say, yes, use scissors all the time, especially if they're actually good ones. I use my scissors from everything from opening up packages that come in, like, you know, literally, like when I get boxes in here, instead of taking a knife that could be really sharp and actually like go into whatever I ordered, I just open these up and I use this just to open up the package. I use this as like a letter opener. Just literally just right there. It opens up the boxes, right? And it doesn't have a really sharp blade on it, so it's not gonna mess it up. If you're ever in a pinch, let's say you're on a boat and you're deep sea fishing or something like that. Well, I don't know why you'd have your shears with you, but point I'm making, right? Let's say you need to open up a bottle. Okay, these perfect bottle openers. Okay, you just take it here, you clip it in, and you go like that, and it pops the lid right off of it. Okay, works really easy for that. Works well for cutting through jeans, denims, arts and crafts projects. I mean, guys, these things are so versatile. People use them all the time. I use them if you ever, you know how some people will make like coconut drinks and stuff like that. You just take this, and you can knock into the coconut, and it'll actually puncture it, and you can just put a straw in it, and you can drink the coconut juice if you need to. Okay, I mean, this thing is, these things are awesome. So just add it into the set. And then what's cool about it, guys, let's say they really like it, but they're like, man, it's a little bit much. Well, you could just say, hey, you know what, Ms. Jones, could you live without the $120 for the free stuff? They're like, yes. You said, I'll tell you what then, I can actually get you the basic essentials in, and we'll, instead of paying $617 for it with the shears, we'll get it to you for $505, and we'll give you the shears free gift. How's that sound? I saved you $100. We'll do it. See how just by adding that little bit in, it helps you create more orders? And guys, here's the thing. You're still hooking them up with a bunch of free stuff if they do get it with the shears. That's something I like to do. Along those lines, we have something called the kitchen system. Right? And the kitchen system, guys, is an awesome package, okay? And so whenever you're doing the kitchen system, instead of presenting it as the homemaker set, just call it the kitchen system. Now, if you're in the pilot, if you're in Alpharetta where you got the 3 sets, all you do is you say, let's say you have a customer that gets excited about the signature. First, a drop down you would have before the homemaker would be the kitchen system. Okay, and here's what the kitchen system is. Okay, the kitchen system is the homemaker plus 8, the kitchen tool set, and the super shears. Okay? And the price, try to get you the right price of that. Yeah, okay. Is right here. Okay. Okay, so the price is $15.67, which is awesome because it's right in between the homemaker and the signature, right?
I knew that one 2 days ago.
What's that?
I wish I knew that one 2 days ago.
I know, right? Okay, so, but see, here's what's cool, guys. It's right in the middle of the two. And so what's cool is that when you sell it this way, a lot of times what will happen, you say, you know, Ms. Jones, for just, you know, for an extra, let's see, breaking this up over 5 months, because I know people want to have this, right? But at this one, plus 12 times 1.07 divided by 5. Okay, it's $337. And so you say, you know, Ms. Jones, for only an extra, really only an extra $40 today, we can actually get you that entire signature set. So that's how you drop up. Okay, so if you know, did any of you guys have a customer that as soon as you showed them the homemaker set, they jumped on it and bought it? Okay, cool. It'll happen, right? Sometimes it happens that way. So they would have gotten this instead if you showed them this first, the kitchen system. And what the kitchen system is it's the homemaker plus 8, the super shears, and it has the kitchen tool set. And if you look at the way the book is kind of laid out and set up and stuff like that, or the way the video kind of presents it, it kind of shows it all together anyway, right? Okay, so by doing it that way, it allows you to sell those bigger sets. The other thing that it does for you is, let's say a customer's like, yeah, but you know, I just can't swing that much. We say, hey, can you live without the shears and the kitchen tools? I know you like them, but can you live without them? Okay, you can? Well, I'll tell you what we can do is we can just get you the homemaker plus 8, and we can actually save you over $350. It'll only be $12.12. And that way we can break it up so it's only $265, and we'll still give you those shears for free. So you drop. So your first drop down is a $300 drop down. And let's say you need to go even further than that. Well, then you do the trade in. So now you've gone from basically 1,500 down to 900.
What'd you take out of it to get the 12?
Kitchen tools, shears.
Okay.
Now you're just back to the normal price.
Is there a kitchen system without the 8 table knives?
Yes, it would just add 959 plus 355. So your man behind you probably has the math already done, but
What'd you say? What were the numbers?
I'm just gonna add it for you.
No, I can do it, man. I got you.
Dude, I know you got me. I believe you.
Should
I
believe it.
totally believe you.
Should.
Maybe I could some chops, we can use some math
I
hours.
think that's what it is.
It's a TN84 up here.
Yeah.
959 plus 350.
It's 1314 is what it ends up being.
I knew that.
So
I knew that.
I know you did. I know you did. I know you did, but you let me down on the 10K equation. So after that, I was like, man,
Hey, I got the right number.
fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. All right. So anyway, so then, so guys, so the way it works is if they need to do the trade-in, so to speak, that would be the trade-in as well. The only thing I will say, guys, is if they do the trade-in, it's basically the same as a homemaker. I just like to do that. Sometimes you have customers that aren't crazy about the kitchen tool set, and you just kind of take that one out instead, right? And instead of just taking out both. I mean, like you could say, hey, 1567, you say, hey, which of the ones do you not like the more? Do you like the kitchen tools more? Or do you like the shears? And I'm saying I like the shears more. I tell you what, then what we can do is we can just get you this without the kitchen tools, and it's only, in that case, it'd be, what is that going to be? Like 1323 or 1324, and then they're still going to get, the $200 worth of free stuff. And what you give for free with the kitchen system is either the entertainer pack or the barbecue tools as the free gift. And if like you're not sure what they'd be more interested in, you could always just give them a dollar amount. Hey, we'll give you $200 worth of free stuff. Did you want to go do that? Cool. Any questions on this? Do you like it?
Yeah.
Okay, so when should you show this?
The beginning.
Always show it. Even if you know for a fact there's no way they're going to get it, by showing it, you get no's out of the way. Does that make sense? Yeah. They say you shoot for the moon. If you miss, at least you'll end up in the stars, right? Yeah, that's the whole point, right? You try to get to the bigger number, and worst case scenario, you still end up with something pretty cool. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show you, this is another little sales tip. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you 10 keys to success, and also send me an email before you leave. All right. Okay, so 10 keys to success. Before your 10 keys to success, breaking it down on paper. So whenever you're showing customers how to break something down on paper, the best way to do it is to set it up so that it's a very, very smooth and easy transition. Okay, so here's how you do that. When you go to present the price, all right. Okay, so once you go to present the price, the way you present the price is as follows. Okay, so let's just say you add up a big wish list. You guys know what I'm talking about when I say create a wish list for customers? If you see people that own Cutco, you always want to build on a wish list. Anytime you show accessories, you build on a wish list. And so when you showed accessories, like Ms. Jones, what I like to do for accessories is just create a wish list. So if Cutco was free, what would you get? And don't say everything because I only want you to get it if you use it, right? So you create that wish list for them. And when you create that wish list, you just write down everything that they don't have that they like, okay? And so then, so you get this big old list, you add it up. Let's say you get to a price. Let's say that the price they get to is $1,000 for everything that they want to buy / 50%. Okay, and let's say that you're going to give them, in that case, $150 worth of free stuff. Okay, let's say it's like let's make it real simple. Let's say it's like the shears and a cutting board or something, or shears and a peeler. All right, so here's how you would write down paper. You say, so Miss Jones, to get everything that you want today, it ended up being this much, which we'd actually break up for you. And I don't even write the total number. You say that there would actually be this much down. Okay. It'd be this much in, now we're almost in June, so by the time you're done, it's July, August, September, and October. Okay, so you'd end up getting your Cutco here in only a couple weeks, or only 5 days or so, but you wouldn't even have to finish paying for it until October. And what's great about it is we'll actually give you $150 worth of free Cutco in the super shears and the peeler. Right? And if you think about it, this only ends up breaking down to being about $50 out of your weekly budget. So it ended up being like taking the kids to like Applebee's. You think you can squeeze that in your budget, Michelle? So do you see how you do that right there? Right? Do you guys see how much more affordable that is? Think about it. When you call DirecTV, they don't tell you how much you're spending a year. Have you ever seen them quote any cable TV, cell phone package, anything like that, and how much you're spending per year? Yeah, it's always per month. Everybody budgets it per month or per week or whatever, right? When you see car commercials, they say, hey, you can get this car today for only blank down and $335 a month, right? They don't tell you you're spending 30 grand. They tell you how much you're spending monthly. Okay, so why would you, so when you're breaking it down, just tell them how much it is monthly. Hey, it'd only be this much down. And so how much down is it? This much. I didn't say the number, did I? It'd be this much down, this much in July, August, September, October. So you'd end up paying for, you'd end up getting it here in just a week or two, but you wouldn't even have to finish paying for it until October. And what's great about it is that just by getting it, we'll give you the shears and the peeler for free, which is a $150 value for free. And so you always say how much you're giving them in free stuff. Does that make sense? You have this much free, it's like, nice. Right? And if you think about it, we'll break this up. It only ends up being $50 out of your weekly budget, which is basically the same as what? Yeah, just whatever neighborhood grill or restaurant you got around you. So if I was driving to a house and I saw they had a Chili's on the corner, I'd use Chili's. For Fridays, I'd use Fridays. Because here's why. When you see that and hear that, they probably, once a week, the husband and wife are probably talking to you like, I really don't feel like cooking today. I'm just going to go to Applebee's and pick something up. Or, hey, can we just call and order pizza and soda for the kids instead of having to prepare food tonight? Any of you guys ever heard your parents say that? I did it last night.
I do.
I didn't feel like cooking, so I'm just like, damn, I really don't feel like going home and meal prepping and doing all that stuff. So I'm just gonna go pick some stuff up from the store real quick. It's already made. Does that make sense? So by doing that, it actually helps you to make a sale because you're breaking it down in layman's terms. Okay, $50 a week, $100 with free stuff, this much down, and then breaking it down that way. Okay. Any questions on that? No? Cool. Does this stuff help you guys today?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. The only other thing that I'll mention is understand, guys, is that usually whatever reason somebody gives for why they aren't able to get Cutco today is the exact reason why they probably need to get it. I'll tell you a quick story I heard. This was an old Zig Ziglar story. He said there was a guy selling home alarm systems, and the family wanted to get it. However, they were on a really tight budget. And the guy said, I'd love to get this. I'd love to be able to get this alarm system for my house. So this fire detector. It was a fire detector. It wasn't even an alarm system. It was a fire detector. It's like, I'd love to get a fire detector for my house and update my home. Unfortunately, though, we're putting our kid through college. We just bought this new house. Our engine blew on on one of our cars. We had to replace that car. We've got this, we got that. And he started going over a bunch of different reasons for why they couldn't get it. And the young sales rep kind of looks at him and says, hey man, I get it. Typically when I meet with families, they need this fire alarm system because it protects them in the long run in case of emergency and fire. It helps them out in the short term if there is smoke damage where they can at least get their valuables out and everything else. But in your case, if you don't get this fire alarm and you get a fire, it would absolutely destroy you. So by spending a little bit today and getting this fire alarm, you're ensuring yourself that you're not destroying the rest of your whatever money you do have. Okay? And again, that was kind of an example of just saying, whatever reason somebody says they aren't able to get Cutco, but they want Cutco. Now, I'm not saying force somebody, because here's the deal, guys. If somebody doesn't like Cutco, if they say, I hate Cutco, great, move on. Who cares, right? If they say, oh, I don't like, and that's kind of hard, right? I mean, what are they going to say? Cuts too well, saves me too much time. I don't like things that last forever, right? You ever heard any of that stuff before?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. I feel really sorry if that person's married for their significant other, right? I mean, think about that for a second. Yeah. So, anyway, it's one of those things where it's just sometimes they're just trying to say that just to kind of actually just to be quote unquote right in the argument, right? But the way that you handle it is always as such. You got to use the objection cycle. The objection cycle, it goes like this. You empathize. You say but or however. Then use logic and emotion. And then lastly is you ask again. I don't know if you guys can even read this chicken scratch. With alternatives. Okay. Yeah, sometimes as it gets later in the day.
What's after logic and emotion?
Okay, so ask again with alternatives. Okay, so here's the 4 steps. This is the objection cycle. So you empathize, say but or however. Then you use logic, and then lastly you ask again with an alternative. Okay, this is a great approach to use when you're trying to debate something as well without causing animosity. Okay, if you're in an argument with a significant other, it's a great way to kind of appease the other person without things getting too heated, right? So it's just say, hey, you know what? I totally empathize. So let's say, for example, they say they can't afford it because they're saving up to buy the world's largest ant farm. I know it sounds ridiculous, but let's just say that's what they're doing. So just say, hey, Ms. Jones, you know what? I totally get it. It'd be awesome to have the world's largest ant farm. Okay, it's cool to have the best something, right? You have the world's largest ant farm. However, and then you use logic, right? Can you think of something you could buy once, use every single day for the rest of your life? It's guaranteed to work perfectly. No? Okay, cool. So would you at least agree it's a good investment? Well, okay, with Cutco, if you invest in it and get some of that today, it means you're never gonna have to replace knives again. So as you're building that world's largest ant farm, you're never gonna have to worry about having to replace something that's gonna be really expensive and get in the way of your goals. Just be done, you're over with it, okay? So, and if you wanna go ahead and try something a little bit small, like perhaps we can get you this starter set that only costs blank today. See how that works? So asking with an alternative. Somebody comes in with, let's say you can do this with your cell phone bill. Let's say your cell phone bill comes in incredibly high and you don't know if you can afford it. So you empathize, say, especially in your job, right? Say, hey, Mr. Manager, or whatever the case is, right? I know, look, I totally understand and get that I went over on my minutes, and I'm not disputing the fact that I went over my minutes. However, I actually have to use my phone for my job. I use it to make calls, schedule appointments. I use it to keep in touch with my family. I mean, if I can't afford it, unfortunately, what I'm going to have to do is switch providers and end up going with somebody else. I know Sprint's offering a buyout policy right now. I know T-Mobile's offering a buyout policy right now. So I may have to actually switch to them. Is there any way you can help me out with this bill? Or is there any way you can up my minutes per month so that way I don't go over anymore and I just pay the difference? Is there any way we can do that? You'd be amazed at how often they'll work with you there if you do that. Does that make sense? So you empathize, you use butter, however, use logic, and then ask again. Okay? So I want to kind of end off with 10 keys to success, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with the kitchen system. So if you ended up having the first person that sells a kitchen system is going to get hooked up. What we're going to do is we're actually going to hook you guys up with a little swag bag. One of the items that comes in the swag bag will be a little K-bar boot knife. It's pretty sweet. Yep. We'll also get you our Georgia Core divisional logo kind of backpack that you got. Something else you'll get, which is pretty cool and fun, is you'll get our. We actually have something. Let's pull it out here. Guys, this just came out. We can't even sell it, but it is a K-bar utility spork. All right, wow. Which I know it seems kind of like it's like a spork. I thought Bojangles had the only cool sporks left. No, you're wrong. This is the way the spork works. It's made of Grillamar, so what that means it's actually designed to be used for camping and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. It's got the normal spork utility attachment, and then it opens up and there's a little blade in it there, which is pretty cool. So not sure if this will get confiscated or not in schools, but it is pretty cool for when you're camping. I keep one in my lunchbox. I've got one here. It's just a cool little tool. It's a little tactical spork that we've got. Okay, so those will be the swag bag that you get when you go out, step up, do your thing, and sell a kitchen system. So I'm going to give you guys my email. Now during here, this is where you want to email me if you sell it. But on the email, what I'm going to ask that you do is write a few things. Okay, and you will need to send me this email before you leave. I'm going to give you guys some keys to success too. But here's what I need on the email. So my email is the number 3, and then Ketchum, which is KETCHAM @gmail.com. Okay. So 3Ketchum @gmail.com. And here's the different things that I need you to write down. Number 1 is your name and office. So actually, technically, name, phone number. I already have your email since it'll be in it, and office. Right?
Like the office number, like
Office numbers. Do office manager. Maybe that's easier then.
Okay.
Who's your office manager? So I know sometimes they go by different names in the system that they do in their office, but yeah. So name, office manager. Okay. Also, what I want you to do here is put down what were the 3 biggest takeaways from the meeting. Okay. And 3 is what is your SC1, which guys, the next 2 weeks, you guys may know this already. We started a contest from now until June 14th. We're competing against every other office in the nation. So what is your goal from sales between now, so basically until SC1, which is in June 14th, SC1, okay, push goal. And that's good. No, lastly, summer sales goal. Maybe it's 30, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 10, whatever your summer sales goals are. Okay, so name, phone number, office name, manager, 3 biggest takeaways from the meeting, SC1 push goal, and summer sales goal, okay? So let me go ahead and give you guys 10 keys to success. It'll be kind of somewhat vector specific, but also just general life specific as well. So, so number 1 is to make sure you use this information. Okay, so anytime you're going to an event, use this information. Now, don't try to implement everything right away, but take 3 things and implement them right away. Maybe one of them is making that recommendation notebook. Maybe one of it is that concept of making 20 calls a day. Maybe one of it is that kitchen system, right? I mean, making sure that you're showing that. So that's the first one, is take 3 things, implement right away. The second thing is, besides using information, is take advantage of the key groups. Okay, so take advantage of the key groups of the presentation, or of the job, or of the event, right? Anytime you can be a part of the special group or the elite groups, it's worth it usually. Okay, so for example, the elite groups, the 2 things you want to ask your manager about when you leave here today. Number 1 is, what do I need to do to get on key staff? Number 2, I would ask, what do I need to do to get on the SC1 Alliance? Okay, and we've got, like I said, we got a couple things in here that are pretty sweet. Namely the squad guys, our SC1 Alliance squad. They get up in the morning, they get to the office, meet with the manager, go over instructional stuff. You guys feel like you learned stuff today? Well, each morning there's a 30-minute video that I've been sending out that you guys can use with your manager to help increase your skill set. For example, today, and you manager may be able to watch with you tomorrow, was on identifying a need and how to build value during the presentation. The day before that, it was phone skills, right? So we're going to go over different topics every single day when we're doing presentations, okay? But getting on the squad, getting on key staff, so taking advantage of those key events. The third key to success is get to the next big event. Okay, the next big event for you guys is going to be the SC1 conference, which is June 14th. If you've not already signed up with your manager, you can go online and sign up now. You can talk to your manager about signing up tomorrow night at the team meeting, but I would definitely sign up. It's going to be 11 to 6. We're actually hosting it. We're actually hosting it at the that's later. We're actually hosting it at the Gwinnett Arena, so the Infinity Center, right up here in Duluth. So your managers will be coming up here, so you guys can carpool for that. Like I said, every office in the whole division is competing, so get to that. That thing's going to be awesome. Okay. Next, the next key to success is number 4. Okay, so number 4 is to have a positive attitude. Okay, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. How you respond is what's most important. Okay, not what ends up happening to you. Okay, so make sure you understand and take advantage of having that positive attitude. All right. Okay, so take advantage of having a positive attitude. Like I said, some of your best days will come right after your worst days. I will say it is a law of averages. A third of your days will be amazing. A third of your days will be terrible. And a third of your days will be right in between. Okay, so just stay positive for that. That's something that's so important. Key to success number 5. Okay, success number 5 is a positive expectancy. Okay, expecting to do well. I'll tell you a quick example of expecting to do well. So I had a representative named Leah Price. She was brand new. Back in 2005. She was on her way to a demo, and I remember she called in and said, "Hey, Trey, it's Leah." I said, "Hey, Leah, what's going on?" She goes, "Nothing." She goes, "I'm on my way to first appointment." I said, "Awesome. What are you going to sell?" She goes, "I'm going to sell a homemaker set." I said, "That's what I'm talking about. That's the type of energy I want." She's like, "No, I already know she's going to buy one." I go, "Okay, cool. How do you know?" She goes, "Well, my mom told me she was going to buy one already." I said, "Hey, that's what I said. Hey, you know what? Still do a great presentation. If you do a great presentation, then she definitely will get it." She goes, "All right, cool." So she did. She's like, she called me afterwards. She said, "Hey, I just finished the demo." I said, "Awesome." What you saw? She goes, "I told you, a homemaker set." I said, "Awesome. There you go. You did a great job." She's like, "Yeah, I did. I knew if I did the right thing that she was going to keep it, right? Keep getting that." And so then she goes home, and her mom asked, "Hey, how'd the demo go?" She goes, "Mom, you told me she's going to buy a homemaker." She goes, I didn't know that. So I just made it up. So her mom made it up to give her confidence, and she ended up going out there and selling, right? So that's an example of prejudging in a positive way, right? Okay, but having those positive expectations of expecting to do well will definitely help you out. The next key to success, I think right now we're on what, step number 6? So key to success number 6, guys, is I know you've heard this a lot, but follow the program. It works. Okay, follow the program. It works. Okay? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Your manager taught you this because they know it works. Okay, so have that confidence in what you're doing, and you'll get great success. We have a guy named Lauren Horton. Lauren actually had 40 consecutive weeks in a row over $1,000. He's been selling Cutco since 1977. He still uses the same basic approach. It works, okay? If you work, it'll work. The next step and the next key to success is to take pride in what you do, right? Take pride in what you do. Okay, why do you want to take pride in what you do? Very simply, when you take pride in what you do, customers will also see that. People ask you what you do. Do you say you sell Cutco or do you say you sell knives? Right? You sell Cutco, right? If you were talking to somebody that works for BMW, they don't say they sell cars. They say they sell BMWs. Does that make sense? Okay, so take pride in what you do. You sell the best product of its kind anywhere on the planet. I've seen hundreds of demos. I did hundreds of demos as a representative. I've seen thousands and maybe tens of thousands of appointments get completed in my offices over the years. I've never had somebody out there bringing a knife better than Cutco. It doesn't exist. And guys, even if it did exist, unless they find a way to, invent laser beams that'll cut food sanitarily without destroying the food, it ain't gonna be out there. And if it does, it certainly ain't gonna have our guarantee, and it ain't gonna be our price. Okay. So I take pride in what you do, knowing that you have the best product of its kind anywhere in the world. Okay. Where are we on now? Number 8. Number 8, make the right decisions. Okay. Make the right decisions. Life is a series of decisions. You gotta, you have to make the right ones over and over again. And I will say, guys, it's making them when nobody's paying attention that really makes a difference. Okay, so for example, in our job, it's making calls when you're supposed to make calls, not just because your manager says to, because you want to get your schedule booked. You want to get your success the way you want it to be. Okay, so so make the right decisions. Tiger Woods made a lot of the right decisions when he was really young. Okay, to get himself to become one of the greatest to ever play the game of golf. But then he started making behind the scenes bad decisions when nobody's paying attention, and it destroyed his life as he knew it. Right, that fateful night when everything kind of hit the fan. Everything came crashing down. He lost the respect of a lot of his fans. He lost hundreds of millions of dollars in a divorce. He, lost the mental concentration and faculties that he once had. I mean, he was never the same because he made a lot of the wrong decisions behind the scenes. I've got a good buddy of mine I grew up with named Chris Paul. Chris plays basketball for the LA Clippers. He's an amazingly talented point guard. He'll end up in the Hall of Fame for sure. And Chris, when he was younger, was not the most talented of his brothers. His oldest brother was much more talented in basketball when they were younger. He was a stud. He was a star. Chris was the kid who was the youngest that he kept working. He kept working on his skill set. He kept improving his own game when nobody was really paying attention. When we would go to the YMCA and other people would leave to go hang out with friends or go to the pool, Chris would stay up there all day playing ball. He made a lot of the right decisions. He didn't drink. He didn't do anything that would get in the way potentially of his ability to be successful. So it's when nobody is paying attention that you really can create that success that you want. Okay, so make the right decisions. The next one, guys, is to dream big. Okay, dream big. Life is before dreaming big, define what you want. Start thinking now of what you want. Create a vision for yourself. Think about what kind of life you want to have. Think about what kind of path you want to take. Think about what type of school you want your kids to go to. Think about what kind of house you want to live in. That was something I was always pretty good at when I was younger. I always dreamed big. I always had big aspirations. At one point, I thought I wanted to play in the NBA. I stopped growing at 5'10", right? I didn't quite have the quickness that Chris had. I didn't quite have the ball handling ability that Chris had. I could shoot, but I didn't have that next level skill set that was necessary to make the NBA. And that's okay. It's okay. But what I always did is I dreamed big of what kind of life I wanted to live. I told you at 16, I kind of mapped out what kind of cars I wanted. It's just one of those things, right? Well, dream big, have that vision for what you want to have, and then dream big with that, right? Because when you dream big, you can create the type of life you want. In other jobs I had the ability to dream big, but how big can you really dream when you're bagging up somebody's bread at a bakery, or sitting on a lifeguard stand while people are swimming, or mowing somebody's lawn, right? You can't really dream that big, but dream about what you want. Okay, Sam Walton many years ago, he dreamed big about creating a chain of discount retail stores, and by the time he passed away, the 8 heirs of the Walton family fortune, Walmart, were 8 of the 10 richest people in the U.S. That's how well-to-do he built that empire. Okay, so dream big, right? You know, when Steve Jobs talked about his company, he didn't talk about having he didn't talk about putting a computer in everybody's house. He said he wanted to put a dent in the universe. And I would argue that Apple's done a pretty darn good job of completely redefining the way that people live since he's taken over. I mean, think about how many people have an Apple product. I mean, I'm pretty much all Apple all day, every day, but even still, most people have at least something Apple makes, even if not everything. I know some people are Team Droid, and you know what? As crazy as that is, right? As crazy as it is, that started from a search engine. Google was at its very core a search engine. Apple built little personal computers. Facebook was just an interconnectivity website. Now, guys, Facebook is building and taking internet to everybody across the world. I have a good friend that works for Facebook. Somebody I grew up with, older brother. I actually grew up with him too. I guess he was on our varsity team when I was on JV, and just an awesome guy. He works for them now, and they actually have, I don't know if you heard of this, but they have at Facebook planes that fly at 60 to 90,000 feet in the air, and they broadband cast lasers back and forth to each other. They're unmanned, and it projects down free internet for up to 90 to 180 days at a time. Pretty sweet. To some of the most remote areas of the world that otherwise don't have the infrastructure to be able to provide internet. That's awesome. But it started as a little social media connection site. That's it. And now it's changing the way that people live around the world. So dream big about what you want to create. And the last one, guys, is to have fun. You got to enjoy what you're doing. I mean, guys, we're selling knives. We're not trying to do brain surgery here. You know, we're not curing, terrible illnesses or anything like that. I mean, so you're allowed to enjoy yourself and to have a great time doing it. You know, so many people in the world get so caught up in all the shit that happens to them they're not happy about, instead of focusing on the great things that can happen to you. I told you I'd give you guys some keys to morning success and morning rituals. Well, it's very simple. If you want to be successful and get your day off to the right start, here's my advice. Number one, just make it as soon as you get up. If you force yourself to make your bed as soon as you wake up, you got your first task out of the day done. Think about it, right? You get your day off to a great start. I mean, military technicians have been saying this for years, but no matter how deep and dark and things get, you can always make your bed, right? You don't even have to make it well. You just pull it across, right? But just by leaving your house, it's like if you walk out of your room and you see your bed is made, you feel a sense of calm. You feel a sense of organization. If you leave and you walk into a room that's unkept and the sheets are all thrown out, you walk into it and you're like, ugh. It just naturally messes you up a little bit. Okay? And even if you're young, you're like, not me, man. I'm just fired up to have, I'm gonna lay down. I'm just telling you, you don't sleep nearly as well when you're sleeping in an unmade bed versus one that's been made. Okay? And also, you accomplish the first task right away. Now, I'm not saying that because I've not been perfect at that. I just recently reread that, heard it on a self-help message that I was kind of a podcast that I was checking into, and I'm like, you know what, this is pretty good. But so make your bed. Number two is to meditate. Now, meditating is different for everybody. Okay, for some people, it's saying prayers. For some people, it's literally sitting there going, right? For some people, it's just as simple as, for me, taking a couple times to use deep lung or deep stomach breathing exercises. By doing that, it calms your nerves, it gets you dialed in, and you're ready to roll. The third thing for me is working out. If you don't like to work out, at least stretching or going for a walk in the morning for a couple minutes kind of wakes up your blood and kind of gets that moving, so you're not kind of rolling in. You're not just slouching into the car all lethargic. You're kind of up and moving, so by the time you get wherever you're going, you're actually energetic. The fourth one is to have some sort of either water, tea, coffee, ideally water at least, so that you're hydrating yourself getting into the day. And then the last thing is practice gratitude. I just actually ordered a book called The 5-Minute Journal, and it's just a 5-minute, kind of debriefing that you do each morning to kind of understand and think about what you have that you are appreciative of. And if you remind yourself of all the great things that you've got going for you, you start to replicate more great things. Other people want to be around you. Have any of you guys ever worked with somebody that complained all the time? Yeah, you don't want to be around that person very long, But then you also will see these other people. They just always seem to have like a crowd with them. Everybody always goes up to them. It's because they make them feel good about being themselves, and also they're appreciative of what they have. So have that appreciation, you know. And if you do those morning rituals, you'll get up, fired up, ready to conquer the world, and have an amazing time doing it. So thank you guys for being here. Give yourselves a quick hand real quick. So 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Make sure to get me this email. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the broadcast. For those of you guys on there that want to send me the email, I believe you have it, but it's 3ketchum@gmail.com. Thanks for joining. See ya.